Chapter 3096. You mean to say that Steward Qin is the breakthrough point? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Why don't we start with Steward Qin and ask him why he collected these two medicinal ingredients? If we can think of a way to exchange for a set of tears of cold flame from him, that would be the best. Di Beichun thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, "Now is not the time. The other party is obviously not a small power." Today, when Steward Qin thought of the other party, I noticed a flash of fear on his face. Steward Qin is indeed a breakthrough point, but with our current situation, it is not enough to meet the conditions for negotiation. Right now, we are not in a hurry to talk about this matter. We will talk about it after we have more chips. If we appear to be in a hurry, it will give Steward Qin an opportunity to take advantage of us. Hearing Di Beichun's words, Bailey Hongzhuang also calmed down. You're right. Steward Qin was obviously an old fox. Once they acted too anxious, he would definitely raise the price. He might even want to take advantage of this opportunity to take advantage of them. With their current situation, negotiating with a large power like the other party was like walking on thin ice. Before they had enough chips, they could only endure and not make a move. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were talking, there was a knock on the door. When he opened the door, he saw Sweet Dream, Shengguan Ying, and Wen Ziren standing outside their door. "Young Master D, I've already brought Miss Shengguan and the others here. I'll be going back first," Shengguan Ying said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and said, "Thank you. I've really troubled you today. Young Master D is too polite. It's all thanks to young Master D that I've improved so much in the Demon Training Tower. If there's anything you need my help with in the future, just ask." Sweet Dream smiled, her cheeks still flushed red. Now that she saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had completely escaped from her previous predicament, her good impression of him continued to deepen. Ziren and Shengguan Ying noticed the change in Sweet Dream's expression, and their expressions became strange. Previously, they thought that Xiao He was talking nonsense, but they clearly noticed that Sweet Dream blushed when she was talking to Bailey Hongzhuang. She blushed. Sweet Dream was not shy when talking to all of them. She was only shy when talking to Bailey Hongzhuang. This was a little too unusual. "Hongzhuang, you're finished. I'm afraid Sweet Dream has really fallen for you." Shengguan Ying looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. Obviously, she was also extremely surprised by this discovery. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. She looked at Shengguan Ying in surprise and said, "Ying, are you sure? What nonsense are you talking about?" "Ying, what nonsense are you talking about?" Xiao He also jumped out and said. Ziren stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, as if he wanted to see something from Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but take 2 steps back and said, "What are you doing?" When Ziren rubbed his chin, his eyes filled with doubt and confusion. "No matter how I look at it, your face doesn't seem to be any more handsome than mine. Could it be that my manly charm isn't as good as yours when you're disguised as a man? What kind of taste does Sweet Dream have?" Chapter 3097. No matter how you look at it, our master is more charming than you. What's more, my master is a doctor. Xiao He raised an eyebrow and jumped happily on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder. She didn't believe it at all when she said this before, but now there was finally someone who thought the same as her. Hearing this, Ziren nodded. "That's true. Compared to Hongzhuang's wealthy identity, Beichun and I really don't have much competition." "What are you talking about? In my opinion, you're just overthinking it." Bailey Hongzhuang's face showed helplessness. She didn't have such a good sense of superiority. There were so many excellent people on this demon refining island. It would be strange if she, a woman dressed as a man, had such charm. Shengguan Ying shook her head. "Hongzhuang, with my woman's sharp intuition, I can guarantee that I'm not wrong." In the next second, Shengguan Ying's eyes suddenly lit up. "However, I think that this is a good thing. Sweet Dream likes you, so she'll definitely pay more attention to our matters in the future. This is simply too perfect." "Haha, Ying, that's a good idea." Ziren gave Shengguan Ying a thumbs up. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look back at Di Beichun with a questioning look in her clear eyes. Di Bei-chan crossed his arms and slowly nodded under Bailey Hongzhuang's surprised gaze. This possibility isn't impossible. All right, Bei-chan, Hongzhuang, I have something to tell you. After joking around, Xiren finally remembered the serious matter, and a serious look quickly appeared on his face. Previously, when you went to discuss matters, Lu Mingxiu came to the second floor and checked the cultivator's number plate one by one. His goal was to find us. If Sweet Dream hadn't arrived early and took us out of the staff passageway, then we would have fallen into Lu Mingxiu's hands. Shang Guanying nodded repeatedly. We were almost worried to death just now. The number of cultivators was simply shocking. Fortunately, you were fast enough. Otherwise, we would have been finished. Even if she said it now, Shangguan Yingying still had some lingering fear. It was simply a matter of life and death. If they had been just a little bit later, they would have been stopped. Lu Mingxiu went looking for trouble again. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She had always felt that Lu Mingxiu was a big trouble. It had only been a short while, but Lu Mingxiu could not help but come looking for trouble again. Lu Mingxiu wants to find us and use others to capture us all in one fell swoop. This guy is really ruthless. Speaking of which, from the beginning to the end, he was the one looking for trouble with us. We didn't do anything at all, Xiren said coldly. When he thought about how there was no enmity between them, but Lu Mingxiu wanted to take their lives as soon as he came, he felt a chill in his heart. It's very simple. It's nothing more than that he couldn't deal with Xiao Yihan, so he transferred this conflict to us. He wants to vent his anger through us. Di Beichen's voice was slightly cold, but his face was very calm. Those who did not have the ability often could only show their strength by bullying the weak. If they were strong, then there was no need for this. Chapter 3098. As Di Beichen's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two nodded in agreement. This was indeed the case. Speaking of which, Lu Mingxiu definitely won't be able to find us today. Wouldn't that make him even angrier? Shangguan Yingying pondered. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other, their eyes big and small, their hearts somewhat speechless. I'm afraid that after today, Lu Mingxiu will hate us even more. Speaking of which, this is completely an undeserved disaster. If he didn't want to do these useless things, he wouldn't have slapped his face so hard. If I'm not wrong, Lu Mingxiu will become a joke again if today's matter is spread out. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands. Her face was full of helplessness. There were always some ignorant people who lifted a stone and dropped it on their own feet. This kind of thing really couldn't be blamed on them. Haha, I'm suddenly looking forward to Lu Mingxiu's expression when he can't find us after searching all the rooms on the second floor. Xiren suddenly couldn't help but laugh. This guy always thought of ways to find trouble with them. He deserved this kind of result. Let's wait. It should be very exciting. Di Beichen nodded. In fact, everything was as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others expected. As Lu Mingxiu searched more and more rooms, his face became uglier and uglier. He had checked almost all the rooms on the second floor. He faintly had a bad premonition in his heart. If he didn't get any results after checking all the rooms today, it would be a little ugly. However, the cultivators behind Lu Mingxiu didn't notice this at all. They only became more and more excited as the remaining rooms became fewer and fewer. They were almost certain that they would find the real target next. At that time, they would have to act before others did. Then, tens of thousands of spirit stones would fall into their hands. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others stayed in the alchemist and doctor area, they continued to make healing medicine. There were a lot of orders for healing medicine, and they still had a lot to make. Now that they came to live here, they completely put down their burdens and didn't have to worry about safety. They could complete the orders with peace of mind. The next day, after Bailey Hongzhuang and the others handed the healing medicine to the counter for sale, they heard the news from Lu Mingxiu. Yesterday, Lu Mingxiu led a large group of cultivators to search the entire second floor. They didn't miss a single room, but they didn't find the figure of number 18 at all. Everyone guessed that number 18 might not be on the second floor for a long time. But Lu Mingxiu, who had a noble identity, made such a big fanfare to look for her, in the end to find her. And they thought Lu Mingxiu's face, is she to find? He. to be her. Chapter 3099. After this incident, the position of number 18 on the second floor quietly rose in everyone's hearts. Unknowingly, everyone had already regarded number 18 on the second floor as an existence on the same level as Lu Mingxiu and Xiao Yihan. Only this kind of existence could make Lu Mingxiu miss time and time again. If it was just an ordinary cultivator, there was no way they could compete with Lu Mingxiu. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others knew what the people of the Demon Training Tower were thinking, the four of them couldn't help but laugh in the room. The people of the Demon Training Tower are really imaginative. In such a short period of time, they've already established a mysterious and mighty image for Hongzhuang. Shangguan Yingying laughed loudly. They originally didn't have enough strength and could only hide from everyone. They didn't expect that they would quietly establish such an image and instead become infinitely mighty. This is also good. I'm afraid that no one will dare to cause trouble for Hongzhuang now. Di Beichen's lips curled into a faint smile. They just didn't show up, and they already gave the other party a show of strength. Now, the cultivators gathered on the second floor who wanted to try their luck had all dispersed. Clearly, they regarded Bailey Hongzhuang as an existence that couldn't be provoked. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. After today's batch of healing medicine is completed, we can go into seclusion with peace of mind. The sales of the healing medicine were far better than Sweet Dream had imagined. She originally thought that after a few days of popularity, the hot sales would die down. However, reality proved that Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine was very attractive. Although it wasn't as hot as before, the sales were still extremely terrifying. Clearly, these people were all returning customers and were completely here for the effects of the healing medicine. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of four could be said to be extremely fast at making healing medicine. In just a few days, they had already stocked up a lot of healing medicine. It should be enough to support the sales for a period of time without any problems. Take advantage of this opportunity to raise our cultivation as soon as possible. When Xiren's eyes lit up as he said, Lu Mingxiu has been finding trouble for us. I hope that we can also find trouble for him one day. It's not like me to swallow my anger. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. Just as Xiren had said, Lu Mingxiu's successive actions had already caused her displeasure. If she did not return all of this to Lu Mingxiu, it would not be in line with her style. Sweet Dream looked at the healing medicine that Bailey Hongzhuang handed over, and a look of surprise appeared in her eyes. Young Master D, I haven't sold out the healing medicine you gave me previously. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand and said, Sweet Dream, I plan to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time, so I'll give you these healing medicines first. If you want to contact me, you can put a note in the door. I'll come and find you when I see it. Hearing this, Sweet Dream finally understood. I understand. Don't worry, I'll definitely let you know if there's anything. Sorry to trouble you. After everything was arranged, Bailey Hongzhuang's group of four entered the ocean world together and began to cultivate. Taking advantage of this opportunity to break through to the fourth level of the Purple Realm in one fell swoop was their goal. There were as many monsters in the ocean world as usual, and every time they appeared, they would be ganged up on. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of four was extremely small in this vast sea, but it was unusually stable. Chapter 3100. Cultivation in the ocean world was extremely arduous. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three might not have been familiar with battles on the surface of the sea, but after cultivating in the ocean world, they were all too familiar with the sea and no longer felt as fearful as before. Even when Xiren, who had been in the water for the shortest amount of time, felt at ease when facing the sea. However, they did not dare to enter the sea carelessly because the seemingly calm surface of the sea was filled with danger everywhere. If they were not careful, they would not lose their lives. Unknowingly, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three used healing medicine at an extremely high frequency. Almost every battle caused them to be unavoidably injured, and the successive battles caused them to frequently fall into danger. However, in this process, their combat power and endurance were constantly improving. Every dangerous situation they faced was a catalyst for their improvement. Almost everyone had different injuries on their bodies. The three beasts situation was not much better than theirs. Originally, the three beasts were also landlubbers. However, they were already familiar with the water. What made Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest feel helpless was that the three beasts had already broken through before they had succeeded in breaking through. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's breakthroughs were one thing. They had not improved for a while, but Bai Shi had broken through again. All of this was due to the demonic beasts in the sea who liked to attack in groups. Every time these demonic beasts appeared, their numbers were extremely large. Once they started fighting, the battle would not stop unless all of them were killed. As a result, all the demon crystals had entered Bai Shi's stomach. In addition to Bai Shi's abnormal attributes, he had broken through again. Now, Bai Shi was the most powerful in their entire team. This made everyone feel that they were inferior to beasts. They had worked hard to cultivate, but they could only watch as the white lion improved again and again. This is simply heaven-defying. When Ziren looked speechlessly at Bai Shi, who was still eating happily, this fellow's mouth had not stopped. How good would it be if he could also improve his cultivation so easily? I'm so envious of Bai Shi. This cultivation speed is simply unparalleled. Shangguan Yingying could not hide the envy on her face. Bai Shi looked proudly at Ziren and when Xinya. The sound of him eating the demon crystals became even clearer. You can't be envious. However, just as they were talking, Di Beichen's eyes suddenly changed. He put a finger on his lips and said, Hongzhuang seems to be breaking through. As soon as this was said, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying both looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Sure enough, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were closed, and the aura in her body began to fluctuate faintly. I'm afraid it's very dangerous to break through here. When Ziren's expression turned serious, they could be attacked by demonic beasts at any time on the sea. If Bailey Hongzhuang was disturbed while she was breaking through, it would be terrible. Di Beichen's expression was equally serious. It's best to go back and break through. Otherwise, we can only think of a way to protect Hongzhuang from being affected. Just then, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes. Her brows were tightly knitted and her expression showed that she was in pain. Based on the time, we should be going back soon. Chapter 3101. Forcefully suppressing the opportunity to break through is not an easy task in itself. It cannot be maintained for a long time. Once the time limit was exceeded, this opportunity would be completely missed. It would be even more difficult to obtain this opportunity the next time. Di Beichen nodded and looked at the sky. It should be soon. If it doesn't work, we will protect you. You don't have to worry. The three beasties looked at Bailey Hongzhuang anxiously. It was not easy to obtain such an opportunity to break through, but it had to be at such an awkward time. They were really helpless. Cold sweat seeped out of Bailey Hongzhuang's forehead. She could feel the surging elemental energy in her dantian. It was constantly churning, trying to break through the bottleneck. The seven-colored, glittering elemental energy was magnificent. It made Bailey Hongzhuang's dantian look like a galaxy, magnificent and perfect. Di Beichen had been paying attention to Bailey Hongzhuang's condition. After discovering that Bailey Hongzhuang's breath was becoming more and more unstable, he could not help but say, "Wife, don't suppress it anymore. Just break through directly. It would be a pity if you missed this opportunity." Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Di Beichen and gritted her teeth. How much longer? 1 minute. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but close her eyes. She was trying her best to suppress it. It was best to break through in a safe environment. Not only that, suppressing it for a certain period of time would not cause any harm. On the contrary, it would make her foundation more stable. However, it depended on the person's ability to control this degree. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to be unable to hold on, a large door appeared in front of them and directly brought them out of the ocean world. Once they returned to the doctor's residence, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately began to break through. After she stopped suppressing it, the elemental energy in her body surged wildly like a flood. The fiercer she suppressed it before, the more intense it was now. Bailey Hongzhuang clenched her teeth. She held the spirit stone with both hands and continuously operated the heaven-defying heart technique. The originally intense pain gradually stabilized as she operated the heaven-defying heart technique. She focused her mind and controlled the elemental energy to rush in one direction. Di Beichen and the other two sighed in relief after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's condition gradually stabilizing. They were worried that the previous oppression would have a negative impact on Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, it seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang was really a lucky person. I didn't expect Hongzhuang to be the first to break through among us. Her speed is unbelievable. Shangguan Yingying's eyes were full of amazement. She thought that when Ziren and Di Beichun would be the first to break through. She did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to give her a surprise. Di Beichun, we have to work harder. If we are left behind by Hongzhuang in the future, it will be very embarrassing. When Ziren smiled faintly, Di Beichun's deep eyes rippled with a faint smile. He did not answer, but his heart was somewhat heavy. As the influence of this cursed body gradually increased, he found that his cultivation was suppressed. If it was in the past, he would have broken through long ago. But now it was extremely difficult to break through the bottleneck. This feeling was completely different from before. If he was not willing to believe that the cursed body could be so powerful before, now he had no choice but to face it. Chapter 3102. This kind of feeling was really uncomfortable. However, Di Beichen never said this out loud, because if he did, it would definitely make Ziren and the others even more worried. Thinking back, he had also fallen from the top of the divine altar and then climbed back to the peak. This kind of feeling was not so unbearable for him. At this time, Shangguan Yingying could not help but see two pieces of paper on the ground by the door. She immediately picked up the paper and said, "This should be the note that Sweet Dream left for us. Could it be that the healing medicine has been sold out? We stayed in the ocean world for quite a long time this time, so it's only natural that the healing medicine has been sold out." Di Beichen took the note from Shangguan Yingying's hand and opened it to take a look. However, after reading it, Di Beichen could not help but frown, because there were only 3 words written on the note. "There's trouble." He picked up the other note and opened it to take a look. There were 6 words written on the note. "There's trouble, contact me quickly." It seems that there's trouble again. Di Beichen's eyes were deep and cold, and his voice was slightly cold. Hearing Di Beichen's words, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying could not help but be startled, and a hint of surprise appeared on their faces. "Trouble? We're already living here. What trouble could there be?" Shangguan Yingying did not understand. When Ziren's eyebrows slightly raised, his face full of thought, could it be that Lu Mingxiu is looking for trouble again? From the beginning to the end, they had only offended one person in the demon training tower, and that was Lu Mingxiu. Other than him, they could not think of anyone else. "It's possible." Di Beichen nodded. "Last time, Lu Mingxiu lost face again, so it's normal that he doesn't want to let it go." "Then what should we do now?" Shangguan Yingying revealed a troubled expression. "Hongzhuang is currently breaking through. Why don't we contact Sweet Dream and ask?" Di Beichun and Wen Ziren looked at each other and nodded at the same time. "Let's go and understand the situation first. I'm sure Sweet Dream is very anxious right now." Di Beichun went to look for Sweet Dream. When Sweet Dream saw Di Beichun and the others, she was pleasantly surprised. However, when she didn't see Bailey Hongzhuang, a hint of disappointment appeared in her eyes. "Tianmeng, what happened these days?" Di Beichun took the lead to ask. Sweet Dream looked around and said, "If you don't mind, I'll go to your place to talk." Seeing this, Di Beichun and the other two nodded. "Okay." After entering the room, Di Beichun said, "Can you tell me now? What happened? Why isn't second young Master Di here?" Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was not in the room, Sweet Dream could not help but ask. She's currently breaking through, so she can't come out to understand the situation for now. Once she's done, we'll inform her. After saying this, when Ziren and Shangguan Yingying looked at each other, it seemed that their guess was right. Sweet Dream liked Bailey Hongzhuang. Otherwise, she wouldn't pay so much attention to Bailey Hongzhuang's situation. Hearing this, Sweet Dream finally relaxed, but her expression also became a bit unsightly. This matter is indeed a bit troublesome. Did Lu Mingxiu come looking for trouble again? Ziren asked. Chapter 3103. Hearing this, Di Beichin and the other two couldn't help but feel even more confused. They didn't know what other enemy they had besides Lu Mingxiu. It's like this. Sweet Dream slowly explained what had happened. It turned out that ever since Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine began to be sold, the other medicine refiners and doctors in the magic training tower were affected. In the first few days, the medicine refiners and doctors only thought that it was a novelty. After all, every time a new item came out of the magic training tower, it would cause a wave of excitement. Thus, they didn't take it to heart. They only wanted to wait for this wave of excitement to pass before everything returned to normal. However, the situation was completely different from what they thought. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine wasn't as popular as before, there was an endless stream of cultivators who wanted to buy it. In addition, Bailey Hongzhuang had given Sweet Dream a sufficient supply, so Sweet Dream didn't think about this. In a short period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine became a monopoly in the magic training tower. Almost all the cultivators came to buy this healing medicine. Only a very small number of people would buy other healing pills or medicine. This scene clearly exceeded everyone's expectations. In the magic training tower, the medicine that sold the most and consumed the most was healing medicine. Thus, almost all the medicine refiners and doctors couldn't give up on this area. Once Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine was released, it affected the profits of the other medicine refiners and doctors. Thus, everyone couldn't help but protest. If it was a normal problem, it wouldn't be a problem for Sweet Dream to deal with. However, these medicine refiners and doctors weren't people that she could easily offend. With the other side pressuring her like this, Sweet Dream couldn't do anything. Thus, she could only quickly notify Bailey Hongzhuang. Recently, these medicine refiners and doctors have been causing more and more trouble. They're asking young Master D to either stop selling this healing medicine or get the hell out of the magic training tower. Sweet Dream furrowed her brows, her pretty face filled with embarrassment. You don't know how difficult it is to deal with these arrogant fellows. Besides, these people usually have a lot of charisma. I really don't know what to do. After hearing all this, Shangwan Yingying's expression turned ugly. These guys clearly don't have the ability to fight against Di Bei. They actually shamelessly found such an excuse to protest. Don't they feel embarrassed? Di Beichen and Wen Ziren were also speechless. They didn't know that the medicine they sold would have such a huge impact on the alchemists and doctors of the magic training tower. Fortunately, Hongzhuang had only sold one type of healing medicine. If Hongzhuang had sold more things, then wouldn't all the alchemists and doctors in the devil training tower have nothing to eat? I also know that this matter is their fault, but once they join forces, they will be a very powerful force. Sweet Dream was very helpless. Normally, they had to be careful not to offend just one alchemist or doctor, let alone now that so many people had joined together to protest, she had no way of doing anything. Chapter 3104. The higher-ups of the Demon Training Tower have no opinion on this matter. Di Beichan pursed his lips, a sharp light hidden in his eyes. Logically speaking, this kind of matter should be handled by the higher-ups of the Demon Training Tower. An ordinary counter lady wouldn't be able to handle it, but as long as the higher-ups of the Demon Training Tower stood up and said something, this kind of protest would be quelled. The most important thing was that they had never made a mistake in this matter from the beginning to the end. It could only be said that those pharmacists and doctors were narrow-minded. They didn't have the ability, so they wanted to use this kind of method to drive away the strong competitors. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Sweet Dream's expression became even more awkward. I've already reported this matter to the higher-ups, but they haven't responded. Clearly, they want you to deal with this matter on your own. The higher-ups of the Demon Training Tower are all sly old foxes. They don't want to offend anyone, so they simply don't stand up. Like this, aren't they forcing us to make a decision? Di Beichen's expression was unfathomable. His black whirlpool-like eyes narrowed slightly, faintly emitting a cold light. When Ziren and Shangwan Yingying's expressions also became unsightly. Compared to Lu Mingxiu, these alchemists and doctors who had joined forces were indeed a bigger problem. This was simply an unsolvable situation. Asking them to stop selling healing medicine was something they simply couldn't swallow. As for leaving the demon training tower, that was even more impossible. However, it wasn't easy to make these fellows shut their mouths. Have those fellows made any specific moves? Dee Bachin asked. Sweet Dream shook her head. They haven't made any specific moves, but they've jointly protested and stopped me from continuing to sell healing medicine. Right now, there's no way to continue selling it. So, they haven't caused any trouble these past 2 days? Sweet Dream nodded. No, I said you were in secluded cultivation, but they seemed to think I was lying. You were just afraid of their joint protest, so you hid your heads like turtles. In these past few days, those pharmacists and doctors have been extremely arrogant. Sweet Dream didn't say this out loud. If we stop selling healing medicine, then it's their medicine that's being sold now. Shangguan Yingying wasn't angry. Instead, she laughed, her voice filled with ridicule. Indeed, forget it. Since things have become like this, we don't have to worry for now. Let's wait until D-Bay succeeds in his breakthrough before we make any plans. When Xiren thought about it and said, to deal with the pharmacists and doctors. Obviously, Bailey Hongzhuang, as well as the pharmacists and doctors. Sweet Dream nodded. Then I'll go back. Okay. Sweet Dream of Dream, Shangguan Yingying, and Shangguan Yingying. Of course, Hong Yingying. Yingying didn't. Except Hong, of course, to say, to them, of them to them, of. Chapter 3105. Hearing Di Beichen's words, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying's expressions changed, it seemed that Beichen was preparing to cause trouble. However, they liked it. Number 18's healing medicine had stopped being sold. This undoubtedly caused a big impact in the demon training tower. However, the source of this matter was quickly known by everyone. Number 18 is really unlucky. She's just selling a healing medicine, and all the alchemists and doctors have joined forces to protest. They're trying to push her out completely. These alchemists and doctors have always been like this. As long as someone's performance is outstanding, they will start to ban them. To be honest, it's really disgusting. That's true. The healing medicine sold by number 18 is comparable to healing pills. It's the most cost-effective to buy. That's why these guys can't stand it anymore. That can't be helped. Now that so many people are collectively pressuring her, these people are much harder to deal with than Lu Mingxiu. Now that the healing medicine has stopped being sold, it will be very difficult to buy it in the future. Everyone was discussing and sighing about the development of this matter. The most helpless thing was the loss they had suffered. Di Beichen and the others walked around the arena area and heard this kind of discussion the most. Obviously, most of the cultivators were unwilling to stop the sale of healing medicine. This made them feel a little better. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang completed her breakthrough and successfully broke through from the 3rd level of the Purple Realm to the 4th level of the Purple Realm. Feeling the abundant energy in her body, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. It had been 3 months since she came to Penglai Island. Finally, there was some improvement. According to the judgment of ordinary people, this kind of cultivation speed was already very fast. However, it was far from enough for them. However, this was also because they had wasted a lot of time before. Now that they had enough spirit stones, as long as they focused on cultivation, the speed of their cultivation would increase again. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes, she found that she was alone in the room. Di Beichun, Wen Xiren, and Shangguan Yingying were not there. This made her frown. Where did they go? The 3 beasts immediately gathered in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and said, Master, there's trouble again. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes suddenly sank. What happened? The 3 beasties immediately relayed everything Sweet Dream had said to Bailey Hongzhuang. These fellows from the Demon Training Tower are truly shameless. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard all this, her expression changed slightly, but her expression remained calm. I didn't know that selling a healing medicine would cause such a huge impact. These guys are too impatient. Di Beichen and the others have gone to the arena to understand the situation. They should be back soon. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the 3 beasties were talking, familiar footsteps sounded outside the door. Then, Di Beichun and the other two figures appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's line of sight. Wife, you've completed your breakthrough. Di Beichun's eyes flashed with joy as he said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I've heard about the joint protest from Xiaohei and the others. Did you guys get any news when you went out? Chapter 3106. Most of the cultivators still hope that this healing medicine can continue to be sold. However, everyone has already decided that it's impossible for us to make a comeback. When Xiren spread his hands and said helplessly, Shangguan Yingying nodded. It's too difficult for us to gain the upper hand in this battle. Wife, what do you plan to do? Di Beichun sat down next to Bailey Hongzhuang. Usually, when faced with a situation like this, neither he nor Hongzhuang would sit and wait for death. They want to ban the sale of my healing medicine for their own benefit. That's impossible. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold, and her lips curled into a mocking smile. Her original intention was to earn some money through this healing medicine. Now that she has earned quite a bit, she only wanted to focus on her cultivation. However, these people just had to cause trouble. She did not mind stopping the sale, but the other party had used such despicable means to ban her from selling. She could not take this lying down. Since that's the case, let's spread the news that the healing medicine will continue to be sold. How about it? Di Beichun curled his rosy lips, and his eyes were filled with interest. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently, and the smile on her lips widened. It seems that Di Beichun had the same idea as her. She could not take this lying down. All right, I'd like to see what these people can do to me if I continue to sell it. However, if we continue to sell it, those people will definitely not stop. I'm afraid that they'll come looking for trouble. Di Beichun reminded Bailey Hongzhuang. These people who were in high positions and used their power to bully others like to cause trouble endlessly. Once they started to fight back, the other party would definitely take action immediately. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged nonchalantly. If the other party was a powerful cultivator, we might not be able to do anything. However, when it comes to alchemy and medical skills, I'm not afraid of anyone. Just a portion of healing medicine that I casually took out was enough to force them into such a situation. It's obvious that their powers are not that great. The other party had slapped her in the face so arrogantly. If she didn't return the favor, how would that be her style? Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying's faces lit up with interest. It seemed like there was going to be a good show to watch. After making up her mind, Bailey Hongzhuang went to look for Sweet Dream. When Sweet Dream learned that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to continue to sell healing medicine and did not intend to pay attention to these people's joint protests, she could not help but be stunned. Young Master D, this will definitely arouse the dissatisfaction of all of them. This is a huge problem. Sweet Dream looked at Bailey Hongzhuang worriedly. With so many people working together, it could be said that they had the advantage in numbers. Bailey Hongzhuang was alone, and it would not be easy for her to fight against the other party. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. They took advantage of the fact that I was in closed-door cultivation to do such a thing. I'd like to see what they can do if I continue to sell it. If they have the ability, they can make healing medicine that's more effective than my healing medicine. If there's only one thing that's more effective than what they've refined, they'll join forces to suppress it. That would be too laughable. Young Master D, have you really decided? It's very likely to be a storm. Chapter 3107. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had made up her mind, Sweet Dream knew that it was useless to stop her. She nodded. I will spread the news. However, young Master D, I have something to remind you of. Speak. These alchemists and doctors know where you live because the rules here are different from other residential areas. Every time a new person arrives, the other alchemists and doctors will receive the news. Once I spread the news that you're going to continue selling healing medicine, I'm afraid that they will come to find trouble with you very soon. You have to be mentally prepared. However, I feel that you will not be able to avoid being at a disadvantage if you compete with so many of them. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with astonishment. She did not know about this. Fortunately, Sweet Dream had reminded her. However, even so, this would not change her decision. I understand. You just have to continue spreading the news. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Sweet Dream looked at the confident smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, and her heart skipped a beat. It had to be said that compared to enduring like this, Bailey Hongzhuang was much more domineering. She did not know how Bailey Hongzhuang planned to deal with this storm. However, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang like this, she could not help but be moved. On the same day, a piece of news shook the demon training tower. Have you heard? Number 18 is going to continue selling healing medicine. This is equivalent to directly challenging so many alchemists and doctors. Didn't she stop selling before? Why did she suddenly change her attitude? I heard that she was in closed-door cultivation before and did not know what was happening outside. Now that she has come out, she is going to continue selling. That means that number 18 is not an ordinary person. It's fine if Lu Mingxiu can't do anything to her. Now that she is facing an alliance of alchemists and doctors, she is not afraid at all. She's a real man. I admire her more and more. Just based on her courage, I will buy a few more portions of her healing medicine today. Bailey Hongzhuang's uncompromising attitude attracted the favor of many cultivators. As cultivators, not giving in was their nature. However, when faced with alchemists and doctors, they could only swallow their anger. Now that they saw Bailey Hongzhuang taking the initiative to stand up, they could not help but admire her. Moreover, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang continued selling, they would be able to buy the most cost-effective healing medicine for them. This was undoubtedly the best. Just as the cultivators were praising Bailey Hongzhuang, the alchemists and doctors who were jointly protesting. Number 18 is too arrogant. Does she think that she can fight against all of us with just her strength alone? That's too funny. She is really a newborn calf that is not afraid of the tiger. She thinks that she is so great just because she has a good healing medicine. She actually dared to do such a thing. If we don't teach her a lesson, wouldn't it weaken our reputation? Chapter 3108. All of the alchemists and doctors gathered together, their faces filled with indignation. Although they usually made their own things, they had already formed a certain rule between them. Once a cultivator appeared who didn't cooperate with them, they would suppress them immediately until the other party finally submitted to them. Correspondingly, they would also give the other party some opportunities to develop. For so long, they had maintained this tradition and would never allow anyone to break it. Originally, when Bailey Hongzhuang stopped selling her healing pills, they thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was a tactful person who knew that offending them was the most unwise move. They didn't expect that they had overestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. The latter clearly didn't have such wisdom. Elder Chu, you are the most prestigious person among all of us. You have to take the lead in this matter. I believe that as soon as you appear, number 18 will immediately disarm and surrender, Elder Chu said with a smile. At this time, an alchemist took the lead and suggested, "That's right, Elder Chu. You've been in the Devil Training Tower the longest, and your influence is also the greatest. The healing pills you refine have always been known to have the best effects, but now there are actually many cultivators saying that the effects of your healing pills are inferior to the healing pills made by number 18. This is like slapping your face. It's fine if our healing pills are inferior to hers, but we all know that Elder Chu's healing pills are very effective. We will never admit this." Everyone spoke out one after another and looked at an old man who was about 60 years old. He was the most famous person among them and had a very close relationship with the upper echelons of the Demon Training Tower. As long as he stood out to protest, they believed that the upper echelons of the Demon Training Tower would have no choice but to agree. After hearing everyone's words, Chu Feihu's face turned gloomy. "They're saying that my healing pills are inferior to number 18's healing pills? Right now, almost all of the cultivators think that number 18's healing pills are the best. All of our pills are inferior to hers. This is what makes us most unconvinced. These laymen don't know the real situation at all. They actually dare to speak without thinking. How hateful!" Chu Feihu coldly snorted. "How can the healing pills refined by me, a dignified alchemist, be inferior to the healing pills concocted by a doctor?" Everyone nodded. "That's right. This is completely discrediting us. Maybe it's a rumor deliberately spread by number 18. If this continues, she's going to step on all of our heads." Everyone's words made Chu Feihu's face even more unhappy. In fact, since the pill refined by number 18 became popular, Chu Feihu's heart had been very unhappy. In the past, although his healing pills were sold at the most expensive price, the sales were still very good. It was a big way for him to earn money. However, recently, the sales of his healing pills had dropped a lot. In the past, there was not enough to sell every day. Now, there was a surplus every day. Now that he heard such rumors, the anger in his heart could be imagined. Chapter 3109. Compared to the intense denouncing of the pharmacists and doctors gathered together, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were extremely calm practitioners in the room. However, this was like the calm before the storm. The four of them were very clear in their hearts that they would most likely encounter a violent storm. However, they were not the slightest bit afraid. Having a large number of people would indeed give them a certain advantage. However, it would not be able to have a decisive effect every time. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang's door was knocked. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three could not help but look at each other. A hint of understanding appeared in their eyes. The opponent's speed is really fast. You all should be mentally prepared. Shangguan Yingying lightly laughed. In the face of a powerful enemy, there was not the slightest bit of nervousness. In reality, those who have nothing to lose are not afraid of those who wear shoes. They were originally newcomers to Penglai Island. They were not afraid of losing anything. Open the door, Di Beichun said in a deep voice. Following the opening of the door, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that there were several unfamiliar faces outside the door. The other party only had 5 people. This number was undoubtedly much better than what they had imagined. Chu Feihu and the other 4 clearly did not expect that there would be 4 people in Bailey Hongzhuang's room. For a moment, they did not know who the real master was. Who is number 18? Chu Feihu coldly said. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly stood up. Her gaze was cold as she looked at the 4 people outside the room. She said, I am. What business do you all have with me? As early as the moment she saw the other party, Bailey Hongzhuang had already confirmed that they were pharmacists. This kind of faint medicinal fragrance and arrogant aura could only be displayed so vividly on the body of a pharmacist. After Chu Feihu and the other 4 saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was so young, a hint of surprise quietly flashed across their eyes. Since you are number 18, you should naturally know why we are looking for you. If the few of you are here for the matter of me selling the healing medicine, then please leave. In this devil training pagoda, everyone has the freedom to sell things. You should know this, right? Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Her eyes and brows were relaxed, as if she did not realize that the other party was looking for trouble. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, Chu Feihu and the others' faces couldn't help but turn gloomy. It seemed that the other party didn't intend to change her mind at all. A brat who's still wet behind the ears dares to spout nonsense in front of us? Do you know who we are? One of the alchemists behind Chu Feihu couldn't help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at them indifferently and said, Is it important to me who you are? Isn't it fine as long as you can reason it out? Am I wrong? Chu Feihu narrowed his eyes. He had underestimated this number 18. He didn't expect her to not have stage fright at such a young age. Clearly, she had already made plans to deal with this. It is indeed your freedom to sell healing medicine. However, you're also discrediting us when you are selling healing medicine. This is your fault, Chu Feihu said casually, but the accusation in his words couldn't be more obvious. Since you are a newcomer, you should follow the rules of every place. If you want to break the rules like this, you will suffer sooner or later. Chapter 3110. I wonder what the rules and traditions you're talking about are. Di Beichun stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang and looked at Chu Feihu calmly. However, his aura was unrelenting. If your so-called rules and traditions mean that whoever makes a better product will be banned and suppressed, then it seems that your rules and traditions should be changed. Otherwise, how can there be any progress if you keep immersing yourself in such an environment? As Di Beichun's voice fell, the faces of Chu Feihu and the other 4 immediately turned ugly. Their gazes towards Di Beichun were filled with fierceness and sharpness. Young man, you're a little too arrogant to rashly say these words without knowing anything, Chu Feihu said coldly. Bailey Hongzhuang said faintly, what do you want to say? Just get straight to the point. I believe that none of us are idle people. She wanted to see what kind of excuse they had come up with to pin a crime on her. If this reason was not suitable, then don't blame her for mocking them. Chu Feihu and the others looked at each other. They thought that their appearance would make the other party fearful. However, they did not expect that the other party would not react at all. Instead, they were forced to make a move. This was really out of their expectations. However, since things had developed to this stage, they could only directly state their intentions. I advise you to stop selling the healing medicine now. Why should I? Bailey Hongzhuang asked back. Why should I? Chu Feihu chuckled. Because we've been here longer than you and know the rules here better than you do. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a smile. If I asked you to stop selling, would you stop? Don't joke like this. Everyone is very busy. Young man, don't be too arrogant. Do you really think that we have no way to deal with you? Bailey Hongzhuang's arrogant attitude had already angered Chu Feihu. He had been in the demon training tower for so many years and had never seen such an arrogant junior. How do you plan to deal with me? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. You don't have any reason to stop the sale just because you want me to? Isn't that a little too much? If this news gets out, I'm afraid your reputation won't be too good, right? When it came to the pharmacist, this kind of guy who flaunted his seniority, if he didn't directly expose their sanctimonious appearance, there was basically no use. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang did not back down, Chu Feihu also knew that she was not a coward. Ordinary words would probably have no effect on her, so he immediately stated his reason. I've heard that many people say that your healing pills are more effective than the ones I've refined. Chu Feihu chuckled. I don't know if this is a rumor you deliberately spread, but such a statement is too ridiculous. You, a fledgling doctor, actually want to compare the healing medicine that you've concocted with the healing medicine that I've refined. This is simply a fantasy. Chu Feihu slightly raised his chin, his face full of arrogance. It could be said that he was very clear about the methods that these juniors used. They actually thought that they were great just because they had some ability and actually wanted to provoke him. This was looking for the wrong target. Chapter 3111. What's the problem with that? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Aren't the healing pills that I've refined better than yours? Chu Feihu's expression froze when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. He stared coldly at Bailey Hongzhuang. What nonsense are you spouting? Although I don't know the effects of the healing pills that you've refined, I'm not interested in spreading rumors. Since so many cultivators have said that your healing pills are not as effective as mine, then it must be true. After all, the eyes of the masses are as clear as snow. Isn't that so? Bailey Hongzhuang blinked. Her expression was sincere and innocent, as if she was stating a fact that everyone knew. Ha! Chu Feihu suddenly burst into laughter. Did I hear wrongly? At this moment, not only Chu Feihu, even the cultivators behind Chu Feihu burst into laughter. Could it be that I'm wrong? Bailey Hongzhuang looked puzzled. If you're not afraid of me, why are you in such a hurry to prevent me from selling my healing pills? Isn't this usually the tactic of the loser? Once she said that, Chu Feihu and the others could no longer maintain their smiles because they could not refute Bailey Hongzhuang's words. When Ziren and Shangwan Ying heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, they could not help but give Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up. She had hit the nail on the head. The market was often the place where the value of an item could be best reflected. Whether an item was good or bad was not based on the seller's words, but on the sales volume of the item. If the sales volume was good, it proved that the item was good. If the sales volume was bad, what was the use of exaggerating? What sharp-tongued brat? Chu Feihu's gaze was gloomy. So you're saying that you're determined to fight me head-on? I'm naturally more than happy to have the opportunity to exchange pointers with you, senior. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. However, if you can't defeat me with fair means and use underhanded means behind my back, I'm afraid it'll be very embarrassing if word gets out. Oof. Do you really think that the healing medicine you concocted is invincible? I'll let you know what a true top-notch healing pill looks like. At that time, when you're chased out of the devil training pagoda, don't beg for mercy in front of me. Chu Feihu was already infuriated by Bailey Hongzhuang. With a flick of his sleeve, he turned around and angrily left Bailey Hongzhuang's room. It was clear that he was prepared to go back and deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing Chu Feihu's group of 5 leave just like that, Shangguan Yingying was somewhat astonished. They left just like that? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and said with a faint smile, "Why aren't they leaving? What do you think they want?" "Fighting is the style of a cultivator. Pharmacists can't do that," Deep Achen added. "I thought that this matter would never end. I didn't expect that they would leave just like that without taking any advantage with their mouths. To think that I was prepared for battle. After they went back, they really began to think of ways to deal with me." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled slightly. Her beautiful eyes revealed a clear understanding. These people's alchemy skills shouldn't be bad. They want to chase me out and eliminate the negative comments. They must want to use their true strength to defeat me. Chapter 31:12. What's more, they don't actually see me as a powerful opponent. Before, they just disdained to compete with me, but after what I did just now, it has completely ignited the anger in their hearts. Therefore, they will definitely create an even better healing pill to defeat me, in order to make me accept my defeat. Bailey Hongzhuang slightly raised the corner of her mouth, her eyes filled with confidence. As an alchemist, she had many opportunities to interact with alchemists, so she understood their psychological state very well. As long as she grasped the opponent's weakness, then everything would not be complicated. Compared to dealing with Lu Mingxiu and those despicable cultivators, sometimes using an open scheme to deal with alchemists was much simpler. So you're saying that they want to create an even better healing pill to defeat you? Shangguan Yingying said in surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang slightly nodded. That's right. If I'm not wrong, the opponent should be willing to pay any price to create an extremely good healing pill, and even lower the price in order to squeeze us out. I'm afraid that things are not that simple. Di Beichen shook his head. Just now, the alchemist leader was obviously a proud and arrogant person. I think he would have spread this news to the entire Mo Lien Pagoda, letting everyone know about the contest between you and him. In this way, as long as you lose, then you won't have the face to continue staying in the demon training tower. Following Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' gazes changed a bit. Beichen said too much. Just now, that old guy really might do such a thing. Hongzhuang, you have to be mentally prepared. When Ziren slightly frowned. These arrogant old guys always like to do this kind of thing. I actually overlooked this point. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and looked at Di Beichen, the smile on her lips gradually widening. However, it's still not certain who will be the one to lose face in the end. Hongzhuang, do you have the confidence to compete with that old guy? Shangguan Yingying asked curiously. Bailey Hongzhuang blinked. If I didn't have the confidence, I wouldn't have provoked him like this. Anyway, we have nothing to lose. Even if we really lose, we'll change our appearance and come back with a different identity. What would they know? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. It was because they were in no rush that they didn't have to worry about any possibility of failure. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Shangguan Yingying and the others couldn't help but laugh. Haha, this is really a way of thinking. Beichen, your family's Hongzhuang has been led astray by you. Now you're saying such a shameless scheme without blushing at all. When Ziren shook his head, this was not in line with the image of Bailey Hongzhuang in his mind. Di Beichen raised an eyebrow. I think it's pretty good. That afternoon, a piece of news once again shook the demon training tower. Chu Feihu, who was highly respected in the alchemist district, had been provoked by Dr. Number 18. The two of them had agreed to compete to see who could concoct better healing medicine. Whoever lost would have to leave the demon training tower. Such explosive news stunned everyone for a moment. No one thought that Dr. Number 18 would actually go against Chu Feihu. Chapter 31:13. This news was specially spread by Chu Feihu. With all the alchemists and doctors as his helpers, this news could be said to have spread abnormally fast, and it was completely from Chu Feihu's point of view. It was as if Bailey Hongzhuang had just arrived and did not follow the rules, thinking that she had some ability and wanted to challenge the authoritative alchemist of the entire demon refining tower. Chu Feihu saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was too arrogant, so he could not help but want to teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson. Regarding this news, people with discerning eyes knew that this was probably the result of the alchemists and doctors collectively pressuring number 18. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang did not do anything before. It was the alchemists and doctors who requested to prohibit the sale of Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine. Today, as soon as Bailey Hongzhuang said that she would continue to sell the medicine, this matter happened. Most likely, it was Chu Feihu who took the initiative to find trouble. However, everyone also had a suspicious attitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang came to the demon refining tower, her behavior had always been very mysterious. Until now, no one knew her true face. Xiao Yihan inexplicably helped. Lu Mingxiu inexplicably suffered 2 losses at Bailey Hongzhuang's hands, and now the alchemists and doctors collectively came to find trouble. Everyone could not help but sigh. This Bailey Hongzhuang was really a troublemaker. It seemed that no matter where she went, trouble would follow. Therefore, everyone felt that perhaps Bailey Hongzhuang was an extremely arrogant person. Otherwise, she would not have caused so much trouble. Chu Feihu and number 18 are at odds. This time, we really have a good show to watch. Chu Feihu's alchemy skills are very powerful. All the alchemists in the demon refining tower are led by him. In my opinion, there is no suspense at all in this competition. Number 18 cannot be Chu Feihu's opponent. Perhaps this so-called competition was just deliberately fabricated by Chu Feihu and the others to show fairness. Number 18 might not have agreed at all. Now that this rumor has spread, number 18 has no choice but to agree. Everyone had stayed in the magic refining tower for quite some time. They had seen many methods of using pressure to force the other party to agree, and the people who were best at using this method were the alchemists. That's true. Number 18 is really unlucky. She just wants to sell some healing medicine, but there are so many people looking for trouble. Everyone in the MOU Pagoda sighed endlessly. Almost everyone had already believed that Bailey Hongzhuang had to get out of the MOU Pagoda this time, unless she could shake Chu Feihu's identity, but this was tantamount to a fantasy. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard this rumor, a hint of interest appeared on her calm face. Sure enough, Chu Feihu wants to use this opportunity to force us to leave. This Chu Feihu is really shameless. He was clearly the one who came looking for trouble, yet he spread the rumor that we took the initiative to provoke him. It makes it seem like he was forced to make a move, showing the demeanor of an expert. Shang Waningying was secretly speechless. This Chu Feihu was already so old, yet he still used such methods on them. It really made people speechless. Chapter 31:14. The 3 beasts looked at the calm expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3, and felt a burst of admiration in their hearts. If it were anyone else, they would have been infuriated long ago. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 were still as calm as ever, as if all of this had nothing to do with them. As soon as this news spread out, the upper echelons of the demon refining tower were inevitably alarmed because of its great influence. When Steward Qin found out that Bailey Hongzhuang actually planned to fight Chu Feihu head-on, he felt a burst of helplessness in his heart. He really didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would fight Chu Feihu head-on. Previously, when the group of alchemists and doctors carried out a collective protest, he felt very helpless. However, these old fellows usually all had stubborn appearances, relying on their own ability to be extremely arrogant. Most importantly, with so many of them working together, they were bound together for good or ill, which made it very difficult for the demon refining tower. Even he felt a headache when he looked at this group of people, so every time they argued, he would pretend that he didn't see anything. Otherwise, these guys would definitely anger him to death. This matter was clear in everyone's heart. Chu Feihu and the others were simply unreasonable. Bailey Hongzhuang had only produced a healing medicine that was selling well. Just because it blocked their interests, they were asked to stop selling it. Now, these guys were becoming more and more arrogant, and their actions were becoming more and more arrogant. If Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't alone, or if she could show more value, Steward Sheen wouldn't mind mediating a bit. However, the gap in strength between the two sides was too great. It didn't make sense for him to stand on Bailey Hongzhuang's side. On the contrary, he would be disturbed by those guys' endless chatter, so he could only turn a blind eye to it. If a doctor wanted to compete with an alchemist, this was simply an impossible competition. As everyone knew, becoming a doctor was much easier than becoming an alchemist. This was because alchemists needed to have enough talent to reach this step, and doctors needed to be serious enough. Just on this threshold, alchemists had to be higher. Usually, the value of the pills refined by alchemists was much higher than that of the pills refined by doctors. This was the difference between the two. The healing medicine made by Bailey Hongzhuang was indeed much better than that made by ordinary doctors, but alchemists had more outstanding pill formulas. Once Chu Feihu got serious, how could Bailey Hongzhuang compare? Therefore, Steward Sheen could only sigh after knowing all of this. He admired Bailey Hongzhuang, but he wouldn't help. The only thing that made him glad was that he was fast enough to get his hands on Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine formula. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang left now, they wouldn't lose much of their losses. After hearing this rumor, Sweet Dream was completely dumbfounded. As soon as she knew about Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, she knew that this matter wouldn't develop well. However, she really couldn't understand why Bailey Hongzhuang would agree to compete with Chu Feihu. Based on her understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang shouldn't be such an impulsive and overconfident person. Wasn't this forcing herself to a dead end? Chapter 31:15. Sweet Dream could not help but look for Bailey Hongzhuang. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's door was already hung with a Do Not Disturb sign, which made her even more flustered. Sweet Dream, you don't have to worry about D-Bay. Since the situation has already developed to this point, there is no turning back. Why don't we continue like this? Shangguan Ying was the first to speak after seeing Sweet Dream. She did not need to think to guess Sweet Dream's intentions. If we fail, won't you all leave the demon refining island? Sweet Dream asked anxiously. Seeing Sweet Dream like this, Shangguan Ying sighed inwardly. If Sweet Dream really fell in love with Bailey Hongzhuang, it would be a big problem. Although they had some conflicts with Sweet Dream before, Sweet Dream had always been helping them after everything that had happened. They were not willing to hurt such a girl. If it really comes to that, then there is no other way. Let's just leave, Shangguan Ying said slowly. However, D-Bay might not necessarily lose. There are many unexpected things in this world. Sweet Dream's eyes could not help but darken when she saw how indifferent Shangguan Ying was when she spoke of leaving. She had never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would leave. It was only after Shangguan Ying's reminder that she remembered that no one could stay in the demon refining tower forever. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three could leave at any time. What is young Master D doing now? He is busy preparing the healing medicine to compete with Chu Feihu. I'm afraid he won't come out for the next 2 days. Sweet Dream nodded. I see. Seeing Sweet Dream's dispirited figure leave, Xiren could not help but poke his head out with a helpless expression. The falling flowers are willing, but the heartless brook is heartless. Bei-chun, do you want to consider giving your Hongzhuang to Sweet Dream? I don't mind giving you away, Di Bei-chun said lightly. Bailey Hongzhuang was busy refining pills at this moment. The entire room had been wrapped up by her essence power. The movements outside could not be heard, so she could refine pills with peace of mind. There are many types of pills in the area of healing. Bailey Hongzhuang also had many pill formulas. However, she needed to consider what kind of pill Chu Feihu would choose to refine. She only needed to refine a pill that had a better effect than Chu Feihu's. If she were to use precious pills in order to obtain victory, she would indeed be able to obtain victory, but it would not be worth it. She believed that Chu Feihu would not refine pills that were too valuable, because that would be a loss to his own interests. But ever since she saw, for a while, gathering all the types of pills together, there were simply too many possibilities. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on Xiao He and Xiao Bai. She said, Xiao He, Xiao Bai, I might need your help today. hearing that they could be of use. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's eyes lit up and excitement flashed across their faces. Master, do you want us to eavesdrop on Chu Feihu's plans? Chapter 31:16. Master, don't worry. Leave such a small matter to us. Xiao He and Xiao Bai patted their chests and made a solemn vow. As long as they shrunk to their smallest size, no one would notice their existence. Furthermore, their cultivation was not weak at all. With Chu Feihu's cultivation, it was basically impossible for him to discover them. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently as the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. As long as she knew Chu Feihu's true intentions, she would be in an undefeatable position. Master, we'll be off then. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. Be careful. I'll wait for your good news. Don't worry, there won't be any problems. In the next second, Xiao He and Xiao Bai quickly shrunk their figures and turned into two small dots, one black and one white, as they slipped out through the crack in the door. Speaking of which, it was precisely because the residences of the pharmacists and doctors were open to the public that Bailey Hongzhuang was saved from a lot of trouble. She only needed to investigate to find out where Chu Feihu lived. She believed that Chu Feihu must have deliberately schemed to defeat her this time. Therefore, he should have started refining the pill a long time ago. Not long after, Xiao He and Xiao Bai returned. The two beasts' faces were brimming with excitement as they said, Master, you've guessed correctly. Chu Feihu has already started refining the pill. Do you know what pill he's refining? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Xiao He nodded. I heard him talking to someone else. He said that he's refining the nourishment pill. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's deep and beautiful eyes flashed with understanding. It seems that in order to be able to drive me out of the demon refining pagoda, he really spent a lot of money, huh? The nourishment pill was a 5th grade pill and was extremely valuable. It was definitely not an ordinary pill that Chu Feihu usually sold. Generally speaking, as long as the cultivator's injuries were not fatal, the cultivator would be able to recover quickly after taking the fusion replenishing pill. This kind of pill was normally equivalent to a life-saving pill, but Chu Feihu actually used it to compete with her. It seemed that not only did he want to chase Bailey Hongzhuang out, he also wanted to use this opportunity to tell everyone in the demon training tower that his true strength could not be underestimated. In this way, with Bailey Hongzhuang as a stepping stone, Chu Feihu's reputation in the demon refining pagoda would reach an unprecedented height. Sure enough, it was a good plan. Master, what do you plan to do? The three beasts looked worriedly at Bailey Hongzhuang. Chu Feihu was not an easy person to deal with. They must find a way to defeat Chu Feihu. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, since he wants to refine the thawing supplement pill, then let's refine the thawing supplement pill too. Let's see who can refine the best thawing supplement pill. Won't it be very difficult to determine the victor like this? Bai Shi asked worriedly. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was unfathomable. Only then will there be suspense. This will also allow Chu Feihu to dig his own hole even deeper. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, the three beasts could not help but look at each other. Every time their master showed this kind of expression, it meant that someone was going to be in for a bad time. Chu Feihu was still so pleased with himself. They were afraid that he would be in for a bad time in 3 days' time. Chapter 31:17. While Bailey Hongzhuang and Chu Feihu were in seclusion, concentrating on refining the fusion replenishing pill, this competition continued to ferment. The crowd's enthusiasm was not reduced at all because of Bailey Hongzhuang and Chu Feihu's seclusion. Instead, many people who wanted to see the world in chaos opened a bet at this time, betting on who would win in this competition between Chu Feihu and number 18. However, everyone's opinions were almost one-sided. Almost everyone believed that Chu Feihu would win without a doubt. So Chu Feihu's odds were abnormally low, and Bailey Hongzhuang's odds were shockingly high. Unfortunately, even if Bailey Hongzhuang's odds were shockingly high, there were still not many people who were willing to bet on Bailey Hongzhuang. When Di Beichin and the other two heard the news, they chose to bet on Bailey Hongzhuang without hesitation, and this bet was a heavy one. Di Beichen noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang's odds were 20-1, and Chu Feihu's odds were 1-0. 5. This kind of odds was too ironic, and many people even treated this as a joke. Therefore, Di Beichen did not hesitate to bet 10,000 spirit stones on Bailey Hongzhuang's victory. When everyone knew that someone had placed such a heavy bet on Bailey Hongzhuang, they were shocked. 10,000 spirit stones. That was a wealth that no one could ignore, and someone actually put on a bet that they would lose without a doubt. However, after Di Beichen took the lead, some people who wanted to take advantage of the situation also bet on Bailey Hongzhuang's victory, but the price was very low. I don't know who started the bet, but this odds are completely mocking Hongzhuang. Shangguan Yingying's face could not hide her anger. 20-0. 5. Doesn't this mean that Bailey Hongzhuang's strength is only 1/40th of Chu Feihu's? This is looking down on Bailey Hongzhuang too much. Who else could it be? Ziren patted Shangguan Yingying on the shoulder, comforting her not to be too angry. Isn't this good? With 20 times the odds, we can earn 200,000 spirit stones. Such a good way to earn money is not easy to come by. Who? Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows slightly. For a moment, she did not understand Ziren's deep meaning. If it had been an ordinary cultivator, everyone would have been certain that Chu Feihu would win, and this bet would not have been set up. There is only one reason why this bet could be set up. Chu Feihu's people did it on purpose. They want to use this method to build momentum and put more pressure on us. As alchemists and doctors, none of them are short of money. Even if you take out some spirit stones, they won't care. What they want is a complete victory. Di Beichen slowly explained. Hearing that, Shangguan Yingying finally understood. Oh, I see. No wonder you suppressed so many spirit stones together. It's their money. It's a waste not to earn it. Di Beichen smiled faintly. I think the situation is getting more and more tense. If Hongzhuang doesn't win this time, we won't be able to stay on the demonic refining island any longer. These guys are really troublesome when they cause trouble. Shangguan Yingying sighed. As the 3-day agreement was getting closer and closer, this matter became more and more popular. Now that things had developed to this point, there was no turning back. Chapter 31:18. Everyone believes that he won't fail. Once he fails, he'll fall from his pedestal. Ziren raised his eyebrows. I'm looking forward to seeing Chu Feihu's expression when the time comes. Shangguan Yingying saw that Di Beichen and Ziren weren't worried at all. She couldn't help but feel relieved. I just hope that they won't go back on their word. 200,000 spirit stones is a huge sum of money. They had concocted so many healing medicines, but they still hadn't earned that many spirit stones. As long as they got the 200,000 spirit stones, they would only need to cultivate in peace. They wouldn't need to compete with Chu Feihu and the others at all. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. When Bailey Hongzhuang opened the door, Di Beichen and the others were already waiting for her. They weren't the only ones. Sweet Dream had also rushed over early in the morning. Today's competition could be said to have attracted everyone's attention. Many people had already begun to pay attention to the movements of both sides. Are you ready? Di Beichen stared at Bailey Hongzhuang with a charming smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She knew that because Sweet Dream was here, Di Beichen had to pay attention to his words. I'm ready. I can sell it directly. At this moment, Sweet Dream suddenly said, Young Master Di, because this matter is a bit too sensational and there are too many people paying attention to it. The higher-ups have invited you and Master Chu to the counter to introduce the effects of the healing medicines you'll be competing in. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. There's such a request? Sweet Dream nodded. This matter was decided at the last minute. Master Chu has already agreed. But young Master Di, if you don't want to, you can wear a mask. In the Devil Refining Tower, anyone who doesn't want to reveal their true appearance will do so. No one will find it strange. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. The three of them also told them with their eyes that they had just heard the news today. I understand. Bailey Hongzhuang replied as a wisp of contemplation appeared in her clear eyes. At this point, was there any need for her to continue concealing her true appearance? She did not hide her appearance before Chu Feihu and the others. so there was no need for her to continue hiding before the people from the demon training tower. Because of her identity as an alchemist and doctor, other cultivators would not deliberately cause trouble for her. She, who lived here, did not have to worry about Lu Mingxiu causing trouble. This was also the reason why Chu Feihu and the others never hid their true appearances. If that's the case, then let's go directly, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Mr. D, aren't you going to wear a mask? Sweet Dream was a little surprised. She had already prepared a mask for Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. There's no need. Brother Bedchamber has already attracted so much attention. If I wear a mask, it'll make me look weak. Why don't I just go like this? Di Beichun and the others nodded as well. In fact, they only wanted to cultivate quietly from the very beginning. They had not thought about hiding their appearances when they were heading to the arena. They had only done so to avoid trouble after provoking Lu Mingxiu. Now that there was no trouble, there was no need to hide their appearances. Chapter 31:19. Although it was still early, many cultivators had already gathered near the counter. Everyone's faces flashed with interest. They hadn't seen such a lively scene in the demon refining tower for a long time. Not only were the weaker cultivators here, but even Xiao Yihan and Lu Mingxiu had also appeared here. Of course, the main reason for this was that number 18 was too mysterious. Everyone wanted to see what kind of person she was. I wonder if number 18 will reveal her true identity today. It's been so long, and no one has been able to find out her true identity. It really makes people curious. I heard that number 18 and Chu Feihu will personally come here today. We'll definitely see her. This guy dares to challenge Chu Feihu, so he's very likely a powerful character. That's not necessarily true. Number 18 will definitely lose today. Isn't him coming here just a disgrace? Everyone was discussing animatedly. Compared to Chu Feihu, everyone clearly paid more attention to number 18. Not long after, Chu Feihu, a group of alchemists and doctors arrived at the counter. Fortunately, this place was spacious enough. Otherwise, with so many people gathered here, they wouldn't be able to squeeze in. Chu Feihu looked around and saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had actually appeared later than him. A hint of displeasure flashed through his eyes. Master Chu, number 18 definitely doesn't dare to compete with you directly, so she doesn't dare to appear now. At this time, someone's flattery made Chu Feihu reveal a satisfied expression. That's not necessarily true. When she provoked me before, her attitude was very arrogant. She didn't look like she was afraid of me at all. That's because she didn't expect you to be serious with her. That's why she's really afraid. The smile on Chu Feihu's face gradually widened. Today, he really did come to see Bailey Hongzhuang make a fool of herself. A little brat wanted to compete with him. He would definitely make him lose so badly that he wouldn't even be able to lift his head. After everyone present noticed Chu Feihu's arrogance, they were even more certain of the outcome of this competition. They were certain that number 18 really didn't have the guts to appear. It's already late, and number 18 still hasn't appeared. Does she not dare to come? If she doesn't dare to come, she should have said so earlier. As long as she gets out of the demon refining tower, there's no need to waste everyone's time. Some young people really won't shed tears until they see the coffin. What's the use of knowing fear now? The pharmacists and doctors behind Chu Feihu began to ridicule him one after another. They didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to not appear like this. If that happened, it wouldn't be fun today. As more and more people mocked Bailey Hongzhuang, the smile on Chu Feihu's face became more and more brilliant. He hadn't come out for a long time. So many people didn't know how powerful he was. Taking advantage of today's opportunity to show off, he missed this feeling very much. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others approached the counter, they saw this scene. Chu Feihu, who was like a moon surrounded by stars, was extremely conspicuous. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed him almost immediately. Chu Feihu's face turned cold when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang. You're finally here. Chapter 31:20. It can't be? Which one of the four is number 18? She looks so young and doesn't look like it at all. A cultivator couldn't help but sigh. According to their guess, this number 18 shouldn't be young. Otherwise, Why would she challenge Chu Feihu? However, the four young people in front of them all looked to be in their 20s. This age was definitely considered young on Penglai Island. I don't know, but I think this number 18 should be a man. It's just that I don't know who he is exactly. Previously, I thought there might be a chance to turn things around. Now, I can almost conclude that Chu Feihu will definitely win this competition. The gap is really too big. Everyone sighed and shook their heads. Although this strength wasn't completely related to age, it was still related to a lot in general. Judging from Chu Feihu's age, he was at least a few decades older than number 18. This gap wasn't something that could be easily made up for, not to mention that Chu Feihu was also an alchemist. Xiao Han was also sizing up Bailey Hongzhuang's group of four with great interest. Speaking of which, it was strange. Logically speaking, with Bailey Hongzhuang's group of four, he should be able to determine the leader at a glance. However, these four people walking together didn't seem to be lacking in any way. It was impossible to tell who was number 18 at all. The reason why this characteristic appeared was because these four people were all very outstanding. It could be said that they were evenly matched. Xiao Han raised his eyebrows slightly. So far, they only knew about number 18's reputation. The others were all unknown. He was a little curious about this team. Speaking of which, the reason why number 18 ended up like this in the Magic Training Tower had a lot to do with him. If it wasn't for the conflict between him and Lu Mingxiu, this healing medicine wouldn't have become so popular so quickly. However, he also knew in his heart that even if he didn't buy it back then, it wouldn't be long before this healing medicine would enter the eyes of everyone. On the contrary, because of his participation, number 18 had provoked Lu Mingxiu this kind of trouble. Lu Mingxiu's gaze followed the footsteps of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three closely. His gaze kept shifting as he tried to determine who was the real number 18. This damn number 18 had made him lose face twice in a short period of time, and his reputation had been greatly affected. This time, he could finally see her true colors. You're finally here. I thought you wouldn't dare to come. Chu Feihu's gaze landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. His aged and arrogant face revealed a trace of mockery. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang still had the guts to come forward. Her courage was not bad. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Master Chu, you must be joking. It's not a big deal. Why wouldn't I dare to come? With Bailey Hongzhuang's voice falling, everyone immediately knew that she was the real number 18, but what she said made everyone suck in a breath of cold air, and their faces suddenly became extraordinarily wonderful. Chapter 31-21. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's arrogant appearance as usual, Chu Feihu couldn't help but snort coldly. I hope you can continue to be so proud in a while. Grandmaster Chu, don't worry. I will not let you down. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly, as if she didn't hear the ridicule in Chu Feihu's words. She was as calm as ever. Chu Feihu's eyes narrowed slightly. This Bailey Hongzhuang was really sharp-tongued. If he continued to argue with Bailey Hongzhuang, he would only lose his own face, but it was also very unpleasant for him to swallow this breath. When Steward Qin saw that the sparks between Chu Feihu and Bailey Hongzhuang were getting more and more intense, he couldn't help but stand up and say, Since the two of you are already here, why don't you take out the healing medicine you have prepared? When the time comes, we can also judge the outcome based on the sales situation and the real effect. Originally, Steward Qin didn't intend to participate in this matter at all, but Chu Feihu had always strongly requested him to come out and testify. He pushed it away a little, but found that it was useless. After all, there were so many alchemists and doctors here. He couldn't help but give the other party face, so he could only stand up. Although he had already determined that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three would definitely leave after this matter, he still admired Bailey Hongzhuang very much. Now, he was willing to be this peacemaker. Seeing that Steward Qin had intervened, Chu Feihu retracted his previous emotions and said, All right then, I will take out the pills that I have refined. In the next second, Chu Feihu handed over a Qianquan bag to Steward Qin. Steward Qin took out a dozen white porcelain bottles from the Qianquan bag in front of everyone's eyes and placed them together on the counter. As more than a dozen white porcelain bottles appeared at the same time, Everyone's eyes were immediately attracted to the white porcelain bottles, and a strong sense of anticipation appeared in their eyes. Steward Sheen looked at these white porcelain bottles, and a light flashed in his eyes. Based on his understanding of Chu Feihu, the value of the pills that the latter took out at this time would definitely not be bad. However, he didn't know what kind of pills they were. "Grandmaster Chu, I wonder what kind of pills are in this white porcelain bottle." Steward Sheen asked the question in everyone's heart. Hearing Steward Sheen's question, a proud expression quickly appeared on Chu Feihu's face. This white porcelain bottle contains a 5th-grade pill, fusion supplement pill. As soon as these words came out, the cultivators present all cried out in surprise. They were not unfamiliar with the name's name, supplement pill. This was a supplement pill's name. This was a very, for cultivators who often encountered danger. Normally, it was not that everyone could not see the fusion supplement pill in a magic refining tower, but every time, it could only be encountered by chance and not sought. Refining this kind of pill required a lot of time and effort. In addition, a 5th-grade alchemist was a relatively rare existence, so everyone might not have the opportunity to buy it. This time, Chu Feihu actually took out so many harmonizing, nourishing pills at once. Naturally, everyone could not help but be surprised. Very soon, their eyes flashed with a touch of passion. They could not help but want to immediately take the harmonizing, nourishing pills. Chapter 31:22. After Chu Feihu mentioned the fusion replenishing pill, his gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang, revealing a hint of provocation and pride. This time, in order to ensure that he would be able to defeat Bailey Hongzhuang, he had been working hard to refine the fusion replenishing pill for the past 3 days. Even he had a high chance of failure when refining a pill of this level. But in order to show his true strength, he had risked his life. Fortunately, he still had some stock in his chinquin bag. Now that he had taken them out together, just this amount alone was enough to shock people. He wanted to see if Bailey Hongzhuang could continue to maintain her previous arrogance at this point. Presumably, she would be scared out of her wits by the fusion replenishing pill that he had taken out. However, when Chu Feihu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, he found that Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was extremely calm. Although there was a hint of surprise, it was far from being afraid. This made him frown. Was it because Bailey Hongzhuang's disguise was too good, or was it because she had a card up her sleeve? Master Chu actually took out so many fusion replenishing pills this time. This time, number 18 will definitely lose. How can there be a doctor who can make a healing medicine with the same effect as the fusion replenishing pill? This is simply impossible. It was unknown which cultivator said this, but all the cultivators present couldn't help but nod their heads. At the level of a 5th-tier alchemist, there was no way for a doctor to compare with an alchemist. This was already a dead end. After seeing this scene, Sweet Ming's face was also ugly to the extreme. Although she also felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's chances of winning were very small, she always had a glimmer of hope, but now this glimmer of hope had been completely destroyed when she thought of Bailey Hongzhuang being forced to leave the magic training pagoda. She couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. This was not the result she wanted to see. Steward Sheen's gaze also fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. He felt a little sorry for Bailey Hongzhuang, but unfortunately, it was already an irreversible situation. However, Steward Sheen also noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent expression, and his thoughts couldn't help but pause. Could it be that this Bailey Hongzhuang still had some tricks up her sleeve? With his eyesight, he could tell that Bailey Hongzhuang was not pretending to be calm, but was really confident. This was interesting. Number 18. What healing medicine have you prepared? Steward Sheen looked curiously at Bailey Hongzhuang and slowly asked. Following Steward Sheen's words, everyone's gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang's body. Now, the outcome would be decided on the medicine that Bailey Hongzhuang had been prepared. Although everyone had already determined the result in their hearts, they still wanted to know what Bailey Hongzhuang had prepared. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly, then handed a chinquin bag to Steward Sheen and said, "The healing medicine I prepared is here." Steward Sheen took the chinquin bag, and then 30 white porcelain bottles appeared on the other side of the counter. Seeing these 30 white porcelain bottles, everyone couldn't help but be shocked. In terms of numbers, Bailey Hongzhuang had the upper hand. Unfortunately, everyone valued the effect, not the quantity. After all, the time it took for a doctor to concoct a healing medicine was much shorter than for an alchemist to refine a medicinal pill. When Chu Feihu saw Bailey Hongzhuang take out 30 white porcelain bottles, not only did he not panic at all, the smile on his face deepened. Chapter 31:23. In the same amount of time, the more precious the healing medicine was, the less it would be produced. Bailey Hongzhuang was able to produce so many of them. If she wanted to defeat him with quantity, it would be a bit too ridiculous. Steward Qin opened the white porcelain bottle and took a look. A refreshing medicinal fragrance floated into his nose. A hint of surprise immediately appeared in his eyes, because he felt that the medicinal fragrance of the medicinal pill that Bailey Hongzhuang took out was exactly the same as the medicinal fragrance of Chu Feihu's fusion supplement pill. It was even stronger than Chu Feihu's fusion supplement pill. Number 18. I wonder what kind of medicinal pill you are refining. Steward Qin couldn't help but ask. The curiosity in his heart was much stronger than before. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent and slowly said, "It just so happens that it's the same as Master Chu. It's also a fusion supplement pill." As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, the atmosphere seemed to freeze for a moment. Then, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock, their eyes filled with disbelief. Did I hear wrongly? She also took out a fusion supplement pill? This is too much of a coincidence. If it's really like this, then how can we determine the winner? Isn't this number 18 a doctor? How could she take out a fusion supplement pill? Voices of disbelief surrounded Bailey Hongzhuang. The situation that had been decided in everyone's hearts seemed to have begun to change at this moment, because the change in the situation was completely beyond everyone's expectations. Chu Feihu also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. His face, which had always been very indifferent, could not be maintained at this moment. He said coldly, "This is impossible." Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Chu Feihu indifferently and noticed the anger that quickly emerged on the latter's face. The corners of her lips rose slightly and said, "What's impossible about this? You're also selling medicinal pills?" Chu Feihu snorted coldly. "Is this possible? Could it be that you got it from someone else in order to win?" Hearing Chu Feihu's words, everyone's gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Speaking of which, it was really possible. With Bailey Hongzhuang's age, it was not very convincing to say that she could refine so many harmony-replenishing pills. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Grandmaster Chu's words are really interesting. In this entire magic refining tower, aside from me, all the other pharmacists and doctors are your people. Where I go to get them. Chu Feihu's lips twitched a little. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's words were full of sarcasm, he had to admit that it was true. All the pharmacists and doctors in the magic refining tower could not help Bailey Hongzhuang. If it was said that Bailey Hongzhuang had so many harmonizing replenishing pills on her, it would be too exaggerated. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang was a doctor and did not lack money, it would not be so easy to obtain so many harmonizing replenishing pills. Number 18. Don't try to be mysterious. I advise you to tell the truth. Otherwise, after this matter is exposed, you will be the one who will look bad. At this time, an alchemist standing behind Chu Feihu could not help but warn. Steward Qin and Sweet Dream both looked at the development of the situation in astonishment. It had to be said that the harmonizing replenishing pills that Bailey Hongzhuang took out had really surprised them. This was completely out of the ordinary. Chapter 31:24. Bailey Hongzhuang swept her cold gaze across the pill refiner. Her young and handsome face was calm and indifferent. What do you mean by deliberately mystifying things? I'm deliberately mystifying things by taking out the fusion replenishing pill. Grandmaster Chu has also taken out a fusion replenishing pill. Why don't you say that he's deliberately mystifying things? As the voice of Bailey Hongzhuang fell, the alchemists and doctors present also had a feeling of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. They had suspected Bailey Hongzhuang because Bailey Hongzhuang could not possibly possess such power. However, They were well aware of Chu Feihu's power. You're only a doctor, yet you're taking out a pill and telling us that you're the one who refined it. Don't you think that's a joke? Chu Feihu stared indifferently at Bailey Hongzhuang. He could not make sense of the latter's actions today. He had intended to ridicule Bailey Hongzhuang and have her obediently scram out of the magic tower. However, he never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would come up with such a bizarre reason. It was impossible for him not to ridicule her. However, the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang's words shocked everyone present. When have I ever said that I'm not a pill refiner? As soon as she said this, everyone was shocked. The originally noisy counter suddenly fell silent. Everyone's eyes fell upon Bailey Hongzhuang in unison. Their eyes were filled with astonishment and disbelief. Di Beichen and the other two stood behind Bailey Hongzhuang with indifferent expressions. They had appeared here today with the intention of telling everyone about Bailey Hongzhuang's other identity. At the same time, they wanted to let Chu Feihu know that age was not all that mattered. The young Bailey Hongzhuang was not inferior to him in this aspect. Sweet Dream was so shocked that she almost cried out. She quickly covered her mouth with her hand. Her eyes widened as she stared in disbelief at the handsome figure in the crowd. This was too hard to believe. She had never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang had another identity. An alchemist, this identity was even more precious than a doctor. If Bailey Hongzhuang was not lying, then she could understand why Bailey Hongzhuang would agree to compete with Chu Feihu. Xiao Yihan and Chu Feihu's expressions also changed slightly. Bailey Hongzhuang's words had surprised everyone too much. Steward Qin's expression also became exceptionally wonderful. He felt that he had already thought highly of Bailey Hongzhuang, but now it seemed that he had still underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. If Bailey Hongzhuang, Chu Feihu, then Bailey Hongzhuang mean that Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, Chu Feihu was already so old, and there was little room for him to improve in the future. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was a genius alchemist, not to mention that she also had the dual identity of a doctor. Chu Feihu was already dumbfounded, his mind constantly replaying the words that Bailey Hongzhuang had just said. It was just a simple sentence, but the content was so overwhelming that it was hard to digest. You are an alchemist? Chu Feihu raised his voice and asked. His calm and arrogant face was now filled with shock. He could no longer be as indifferent as before. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. Chapter 3125. Chu Feihu had been an alchemist for so many years, so he understood the situation of alchemists very well. He knew that there were indeed some genius alchemists who could refine fifth-grade pills at a young age, but he didn't believe that Bailey Hongzhuang had the dual identity of an alchemist and a doctor. If Bailey Hongzhuang really had such an identity, then she couldn't have lived on the second floor before, and Steward Qin's attitude couldn't have been like this. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows, and the corner of her mouth hooked up into a playful smile. She said, Grandmaster Chu's words are really funny. What I need to prove with my own ability. Ever since I came to the residential area of the alchemists and doctors, Grandmaster Chu has been pressuring me step by step, forcing me to this point. I have already competed with you as you wished. If you continue to rely on your seniority, aren't you a bit shameless? Her cold voice was indifferent and cold, and it was filled with a faint anger that was not concealed at all. Everyone's expression changed, and many people sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were filled with horror. Relying on seniority, Bailey Hongzhuang actually said that Chu Feihu was relying on his seniority. This was not giving Chu Feihu any face at all. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's words also revealed a lot of information. Sure enough, she didn't want to participate in this competition on her own initiative, but Chu Feihu forced her to this point step by step. At this point, everyone present tacitly believed in Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, only Chu Feihu had the ability to force Bailey Hongzhuang to participate. If it was only Bailey Hongzhuang who provoked Chu Feihu would not have agreed at all. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Chu Feihu's eyes quickly burst into flames, and his body couldn't help but tremble. The anger on his face seemed to be able to burn Bailey Hongzhuang to ashes at any time. What nonsense are you talking about? In the past 3 days, no matter how they spread the rumors, Bailey Hongzhuang had never responded. He thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was tactful enough to know that she had to swallow this loss. But this damn guy actually said such words in front of everyone today. Wasn't this a slap to his face? A single sentence of taking advantage of his seniority was enough to pour a basin of dirty water on his head. What's more, Chu Feihu had stayed in the Demon Tower for so many years, and no one had ever dared to say that he was relying on his seniority. What I said is the truth. Whether it's Grandmaster Chu or everyone else here, they all know it very well, right? Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged her shoulders, looking like she had a clear conscience. Chu Feihu, who was already extremely angry, became even angrier after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance. He reached out with both hands, as if he couldn't wait to kill Bailey Hongzhuang. When Steward Qin saw this scene, he hurriedly stood up and said, "Master Chu, calm down. There are so many people here. It's not good to affect your image." Hearing this, the corner of Chu Feihu's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Affect my image? His image had already been destroyed by Bailey Hongzhuang just now. Steward Qin, tell me what to do about this matter. Chu Feihu's chest heaved up and down as he glared angrily at Steward Qin. Obviously, if Steward Qin didn't give him an explanation today, he would definitely not let this matter go easily. Chapter 31:26. Steward Qin felt extremely helpless in his heart. If possible, he really didn't want to get involved in this matter. Master Chu, today's main purpose is to witness the competition between you and number 18. The most important thing is to see the effects of the pills. You mean you don't care about this matter? Chu Feihu felt that he was about to explode from anger. He had been in the Demon Refining Tower for so many years. Who would dare to provoke his dignity? Now, a new brat actually dared to provoke him and ruin his reputation in front of everyone. He simply could not tolerate it. Steward Qin's face was filled with a thick smile as he said, "Master Chu, didn't you and number 18 already agree on this? Whoever loses will leave the Demon Refining Tower. Why are you so angry about this now? You have been in our Demon Refining Tower for so many years, and we all know what kind of person you are." The smile in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes gradually deepened. This Steward Qin was indeed a shrewd person. His words could be said to be watertight, and different people would have different meanings when they heard it. Everyone was clear about Chu Feihu's character. However, what kind of person he was, that was a matter of opinion. After being advised by Steward Qin, Chu Feihu's expression became a little better. He said, "Steward Qin, I will not bother about this matter for the time being on your account. Once the results are out, I will definitely make her scram out of the Demon Refining Tower as soon as possible." Steward Qin nodded repeatedly. "Since this is your personal agreement, you naturally have to abide by it." Everyone saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was able to make Chu Feihu angry like this, and they secretly sighed in their hearts. Sure enough, both sides were not easy to deal with. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was young, she was not a good person to offend. Even Chu Feihu was not able to get any benefits from her. Steward Qin, both sides have refined the nourishing pill. How should we determine the victor? At this time, Sweet Dream could not help but ask. Originally, they could directly determine the final result based on the different pills that both sides had refined. However, the pills that both sides had taken out were exactly the same, so there was no need to make an assertion. Could it be that the final result was a draw? As his voice fell, everyone also thought of this problem. Since it was the same medicinal pill, then there was no way to determine the result. For a moment, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a deeper meaning. If all of this was done deliberately by Bailey Hongzhuang, then they could only say that Bailey Hongzhuang was extraordinarily smart. Previously, Chu Feihu and Bailey Hongzhuang had agreed that whoever lost would leave the demonic tower. However, they had never mentioned how a draw would be handled. As such, the words they had spoken before naturally did not count. Steward Qin could not help but be stunned. He really did not pay attention to this question. In this way, it was indeed impossible to determine the outcome. Chu Feihu's brows couldn't help but frown. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, His eyes were filled with a bit of complexity. He even began to wonder if there was a traitor on their side. Otherwise, how could the pill that Bailey Hong Zhuang took out be exactly the same as his? There were so many types of healing pills. He did not believe that Bailey Hong Zhuang would coincidentally choose the same one as him. Furthermore, there was a huge problem with Bailey Hong Zhuang being able to take out so many nourishing pills. Chapter 31:27. It is indeed very difficult to determine the victor between the two pills. Steward Qin's eyes flashed with a hint of thought, and his expression also revealed a bit of embarrassment. Why don't we conclude this competition as a draw? As soon as Steward Qin said the idea of a draw, Chu Feihu immediately refused. No, there must be a victor between her and me. I will never accept the result of a draw. In order to drive Bailey Hongzhuang out of the magic refining pagoda, he had not only left the mountain, but also spent so much effort. If he could not drive Bailey Hongzhuang out, then wouldn't his efforts be in vain? The so-called draw seemed to be a draw, but everyone knew in their hearts that the winner was Bailey Hongzhuang. How could he let such a sharp-tongued brat win? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Chu Feihu indifferently, with a hint of ridicule in her eyes. She had already guessed that Chu Feihu would not agree to a draw, but in this way, Chu Feihu had dug a hole for himself. Di Beichen and the other two, who were standing behind Bailey Hongzhuang, also had a faint smile on their faces. It seemed that the development of the situation was exactly as they had imagined. When Steward Qin saw Chu Feihu being so stubborn, he secretly cursed in his heart. This old fellow is really stupid. He was already helping Chu Feihu by saying that it was a draw. Otherwise, if he judged the result based on the number of pills, then Chu Feihu would definitely lose. It was a pity that this old fellow who relied on his seniority did not realize the true situation in front of him. He thought that all the advantages were on his side. Steward Qin, since Master Chu is unwilling to accept the result of this draw, then according to the number of pills, the winner should be me, right? Seeing that it was about time, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly opened her mouth and said. When these words came out, Chu Feihu's expression couldn't help but change. How can this be? Seeing that Chu Feihu finally knew how to be anxious, Steward Qin also felt a burst of joy in his heart. This old fellow should know the meaning of his words now. He always thought that he was amazing, but he didn't know that the scales of victory had already tilted. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Why not? Since we are both refining fusion replenishing pills, in these 3 days, I have refined more fusion replenishing pills than you, whose alchemy skills are more outstanding, should be able to tell a glance. The faces of the people present became very interesting. Before, almost everyone believed that Bailey Hongzhuang would only leave with her tail between her legs. They did not think that the situation would be completely reversed. Instead, it was Bailey Hongzhuang who forced Chu Feihu into a desperate situation. The degree of excitement was really amazing. After Lu Mingxiu saw Bailey Hongzhuang's methods, he also understood why he had fallen into the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang before. This person seemed arrogant, but every word she said was enough to rely on. She was obviously weak in front of Chu Feihu, but she was able to make Chu Feihu angry to the extreme, but he was helpless. Just this point alone was absolutely impossible without enough wisdom. In fact, today's situation was originally an unsolvable situation. However, Bailey Hongzhuang cleverly resolved it and even gained the upper hand. Chapter 31:28. Steward Qin also looked at Chu Feihu coldly. Just now, he wanted to speak up for Chu Feihu, but Chu Feihu rejected him. Now that he had fallen into such a situation, it was Chu Feihu's own business. Although he was unwilling to offend Chu Feihu, it did not mean that he was afraid of Chu Feihu. On the contrary, he felt that it was a good choice for Chu Feihu to leave the demon refining tower now. Perhaps the alchemists and doctors would not be as foul as they were now. Chu Feihu's face suddenly became awkward. Now he reacted, but the words had already been spoken, and it was impossible to take them back. What's more, letting him admit that he and Bailey Hongzhuang had a tie was also unacceptable. After thinking for a while, Chu Feihu finally came up with a good idea. He immediately said, "Number 18, we agreed to see whose healing medicine is better. This has nothing to do with the quantity. Logically speaking, we should let everyone judge whose healing medicine is better. Do you think I'm old and muddle-headed and want to confuse quality with quantity? At this time, Chu Feihu could only be thick-skinned. After all, it was much better to be shameless than to admit defeat. Following Chu Feihu's words, Shangwan Yingying could not help but mock. I really don't know what he wants to say. At this moment, it was not only Shangwan Yingying who had such thoughts. The others were also speechless at Chu Feihu's lame words. No matter what, Chu Feihu was a respected elder in the Demon Refining Tower. Now, he was taking advantage of the younger generation. Just this point alone was enough to put him at a disadvantage. Not only Chu Feihu, but the alchemists and doctors who came with Chu Feihu also felt ashamed after seeing this scene. However, this situation was very different from what they had imagined. From a moment Bailey Hongzhuang took out the fusion replenishing pill, their plan had been completely ruined. After that, they walked step by step until now. Even they themselves did not know how it had developed. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Chu Feihu indifferently. Her expression was filled with speechlessness. Master Chu, now that things have come to this, just tell me what you want to do. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's helpless words, Chu Feihu only felt that his old face was about to be completely lost. Wasn't this equivalent to him taking advantage of the younger generation at his age? After such a commotion, almost everyone felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's bearing was much stronger than Chu Feihu's. If it was Chu Feihu, under such circumstances, he would definitely be unreasonable. And although Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude was arrogant before, she did not force him to be forced into a desperate situation. At this point, he could only admit that it was a tie. At this point, he could only admit that it to admit to the result. At this point, he could only to admit that it was a tie. He to himself, she, to himself, to himself, to himself, to himself, to her, to him, to himself. However, all of you are refining fusion replenishing pills. How can the effects be distinguished? Steward Qin frowned. He did not understand what Chu Feihu was doing at all. Didn't he come back to the same place after going around in circles? Chapter 31:29. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang curiously. They did not understand what Bailey Hongzhuang meant by her words. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into an indifferent and shallow smile. I think that everyone should know that even if it is the same pill, the effect may not be the same. Due to the different levels of each alchemist, there is a certain difference in the effects of the pills they refine. Therefore, even if Master Chu and I are both refining the fusion replenishing pill, the effects will definitely be different. Therefore, it is not difficult to determine the winner. As soon as these words were spoken, Chu Feihu's eyes lit up. He secretly laughed in his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang had really dug a hole for him to jump into. Number 18 is right. There will be some differences in the pills refined by every alchemist. We can use this to determine the winner. He had been an alchemist for so many years, and he was the best alchemist in the entire Demon Refining Tower. Therefore, the effect of the fusion replenishing pill he refined would definitely be the best. He didn't know who was secretly helping Bailey Hongzhuang, but he believed that the other party's alchemy skills were definitely incomparable to his. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They had heard of this problem before, but most of the medicinal effects of the pills were not very different. It would not be easy to judge. At this moment, Steward Qin began to wonder. Bailey Hongzhuang had clearly gained the upper hand, so why did she take the initiative to bring up this matter? Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang was confident that the effect of her fusion replenishing pill was better? After the previous incident, Steward Qin had already determined that Bailey Hongzhuang was a smart person. She would not dig a trap for herself and jump into it, but this was a bit too confident. Shangwan Yingying and Wen Xiren's eyes also revealed a hint of surprise. They really did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to make such a decision, but after seeing Di Beichen's indifferent expression, they felt relieved. Bailey Hongzhuang must have the confidence to win. Steward Qin, number 18, and I have reached an agreement on this matter. What do you think? A faint smile appeared in Chu Feihu's eyes. Now, there was a glimmer of hope. He thought that he could only admit that both sides were tied, but he did not expect that the situation would turn around and he would once again gain the advantage. Hearing this, Steward Qin could only nod his head. Then, according to your thoughts, how should we implement this? It's very simple. As long as we sell this fusion replenishing pill to all the cultivators, everyone will understand after using it. After all, the masses will not lie. Without waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to speak, Chu Feihu spoke out his thoughts. He did not want to give Bailey Hongzhuang the slightest chance to go back on her words. Number 18. What do you think of Master Chu's suggestion? Steward Qin asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and said, I have no objections. Let's do it this way. Chu Feihu's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. He did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to agree so readily. He actually had a bad premonition in his heart, but he quickly dispelled this idea, because no matter from which angle, Bailey Hongzhuang had no chance of winning. Chapter 31:30. As a higher-up of the Demon Refining Tower, Steward Qin was very familiar with handling all of this. After knowing the thoughts of Bailey Hongzhuang and Chu Feihu, he quickly came up with a method for the competition. That was to sell the fusion replenishing pills refined by Bailey Hongzhuang and Chu Feihu, but record down the names of the cultivators who bought the fusion replenishing pills. A month later, these cultivators who had used the fusion replenishing pills would come back to vote and choose the side that they felt had a better effect. Although this method would have some drawbacks, it was the fairest method that could be thought of so far. Although the value of the fusion replenishing pill was very high, the cultivators who came to the Demon Refining Tower were all above the purple realm. They had seen many treasures, and it was not like they had not taken the fusion replenishing pill before. Therefore, it should be possible to compare the effects. If they really couldn't tell, then they could only see which side everyone supported more. Since everyone is helping us to determine the winner this time, I will sell all the fusion replenishing pills at half price. Chu Feihu said with a smile. He was very satisfied that today's matter had developed to this point. With his wealth, it was not a big deal to earn less money. On the contrary, this way, he would be able to gain the favor of more people. Following Chu Feihu's words, many of the cultivators present couldn't help but exclaim. The fiery light in their eyes became even more intense. To be able to buy the fusion replenishing pill at a normal price, this was an opportunity that they would never have on a normal day. Di Beichin and the others looked at Chu Feihu's method of buying people's hearts and couldn't help but frown. This old fellow said that he was smart and would often do stupid things, but this method of buying people's hearts was indeed not bad. Number 18, what about you? When Steward Qin saw that Chu Feihu had taken the lead in making such a decision, he couldn't help but look at number 18. In this situation, he was afraid that number 18 would have to lower the price. However, what Bailey Hongzhuang said surprised Steward Qin once again. Only pills with insufficient effects need to be sold at a reduced price. Obviously, my healing pills don't need to be sold at a reduced price. This simple sentence showed Bailey Hongzhuang's arrogance and confidence. Everyone was surprised, but after seeing the confident light on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, the words that they wanted to ridicule were stuck in their throats. Confidence without any foundation was naturally mocked, but if one had enough strength, then this could only be said to be arrogance. Bailey Hongzhuang was very confident in the pills she had refined. All this time, the effect of the pills refined by her had been 20% better than those refined by ordinary alchemists, which is why she was confident that she would definitely win this competition. Chu Feihu's action of lowering the price did indeed gain the favor of many people, but in the end, everyone still relied on the effects of the medicinal pills to speak. Lowering the price was just devaluing the value of his own pills. Chu Feihu, who was originally full of smiles, heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. His face suddenly turned ugly. Bailey Hongzhuang's ability to cut a knife was really not bad. With a cold snort in his heart, Chu Feihu was too lazy to bother with Bailey Hongzhuang. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang would taste the bitter fruit. Chapter 31:31. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and said, "Sorry to trouble you." After that, Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Bei Chun looked at each other and suddenly did not continue to stay at the counter. They turned and left together. Seeing Bailey Hong Zhuang and the other three leave like this, everyone couldn't help but be surprised. Although the four of them had been in the Magic Tower for quite some time, based on their attitude, they didn't lose out to Chu Feihu at all. Compared to the various kinds of momentum that Chu Feihu had created before, Bailey Hong Zhuang and the other three's calm response made them seem even better. When Chu Feihu and the other alchemists and doctors saw that Bailey Hong Zhuang and the other three were actually so arrogant, the malicious light in their eyes couldn't help but become more intense. No matter how they looked at it, Bailey Hong Zhuang and the other three should be standing there and watching them leave first. They didn't expect that the situation would be completely reversed. This kind of difference made them feel very unhappy. In the next second, Chu Feihu also left with a gloomy face. After today's competition, he had lost face in the end. He could only wait for the final result to come out before he properly ridiculed Bailey Hong Zhuang. When the time came, he would definitely return everything that had happened today back to Bailey Hong Zhuang. Sweet Dream looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang's figure as she left, and the admiration in her heart became even stronger. This kind of Bailey Hong Zhuang was really too elegant. After Bailey Hong Zhuang and Chu Feihu left, the cultivators present turned their attention to the counter. Although Chu Feihu and Bailey Hong Zhuang had brought a lot of pills, there were only a total of 40 pills. There were too many monks and too little gruel. They couldn't miss this opportunity, especially Chu Feihu's nourishing pill. Half price was undoubtedly the best deal. Within a few minutes of the sale, Chu Feihu's healing medicine had already been sold out by a group of cultivators. Those who did not manage to get their hands on it could only blame themselves for not being fast enough and missing out on such a great opportunity. Xiao Yihan was also standing in front of the counter. However, he did not buy Chu Feihu's nourishing pill. Instead, he bought Bailey Hong Zhuang's nourishing pill. After seeing Bailey Hong Zhuang in person today, he was even more curious about Bailey Hong Zhuang. He felt that this Bailey Hong Zhuang was definitely not arrogant for no reason. On the contrary, Bailey Hong Zhuang definitely had her own abilities. He wanted to see the source of Bailey Hong Zhuang's confidence. He wanted to see how this fusion replenishing pill was different from ordinary fusion replenishing pills. Lu Mingxiu also bought Bailey Hong Zhuang's nourishing pill. However, he did not buy it himself. Instead, he found someone to buy it for him. He also wanted to know the true strength of Bailey Hong Zhuang. After Chu Feihu's nourishing pill was sold out, the other cultivators could only buy Bailey Hong Zhuang's nourishing pill. Although it was sold at the original price, it was a pill that was rarely seen. As long as one had enough spirit stones, it was extremely good to buy a set and store it in case of an emergency. In this demon training tower, everyone's life was tied to their waistband. The usage rate of this kind of pill was extremely high. As soon as she returned to the room, Shang Wanning could not help but let out a sigh of relief. She poured a cup of tea and sat on the chair to drink it. Chapter 31-32. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled, and her angular face softened a little. She said, Chu Feihu can't threaten me in front of so many people today, right? That old man cares too much about his image. He's destined to be at a disadvantage. Haha, Chu Feihu didn't expect us to take out the harmonizing, nourishing pill. Thinking back to his expression just now, it's so interesting. Xiao He and Xiao Bai kept jumping around, and their faces were full of excitement. This was all thanks to them. Thinking about the results they achieved today, they were very satisfied. Speaking of which, Hong Zhuang, you sold the harmonizing, nourishing pill at the original price. Won't you be at a disadvantage in this aspect? When Xiren's handsome and elegant face showed a hint of seriousness. Overall, they had the upper hand today, but Chu Feihu's lowering of the price made him a little worried. If Chu Feihu succeeded in buying people's hearts, then everyone would vote for Chu Feihu during the voting, and they would be at a disadvantage. Hearing this, Di Beichen was the first to shake his head. He said, that won't happen. Xiren raised his eyebrows slightly and silently asked Di Beichen for the reason. Chu Feihu only had a dozen harmonizing nourishing pills. Only a dozen cultivators took advantage of him. On the other hand, There were 30 cultivators who bought Hong Zhuang's harmonizing nourishing pill. If you bought the harmonizing nourishing pill at double the price, would you be willing to let others say that you wasted your money on something that was not worth it? Once this was said, when Ziren immediately understood. Then, he gave Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up. Brilliant. It's really brilliant. Everyone had the mentality of covering up their shortcomings. They would not be willing to let others say that they made the wrong decision. The more arrogant a person was, the more obvious this would be. Therefore, these cultivators would definitely not say that Bailey Hongzhuang's harmonizing nourishing pill was bad. In this way, not only did they earn spirit stones, but they were also not at a disadvantage. It was really excellent. Moreover, the harmonizing nourishing pill that I refined is better than the average harmonizing nourishing pill. I believe these cultivators can tell. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was full of confidence. She had always been confident in the pills that she refined. Hongzhuang, I'm really admiring you more and more. Shangguan Yingying's face was full of smiles. Chu Feihu must think that he's going to win. When the real result is, it will be exciting. I'm actually looking forward to the time when those 200,000 spirit stones will fall into our pockets. It'll be so satisfying. A huge amount. It was a huge sum. Listening to Ziren's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes couldn't help but show a strange color. 200,000 spirit stones. What does that mean? Mean that? Ziren smiled faintly and winked. Ask Beichen. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but look at Di Beichen. Di Beichen said, there was a bet before. Your odds were 1 to 20. I bet 10,000 spirit stones. If we win, we'll get 200,000 spirit stones. Where was the bet? Can we continue to bet now? Her ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with excitement. Earning spirit stones like this was much faster than refining pills. Di Beichen shook his head and said, it stopped yesterday. It's impossible to place another bet. Chapter 31-33. Since Bailey Hongzhuang had the Chaos Ring, it was the safest place to store the spirit stones. Therefore, most of the spirit stones they earned were stored in the Chaos Ring. Di Beichen and the others only had a total of 10,000 spirit stones on them. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang had been in seclusion refining pills, so Di Beichen and the others had used up all their spirit stones on the bet. No matter what, we've made a profit this time. Shangguan Yingying smiled faintly. Compared to the 1,000 spirit stones they had on them when they first arrived, 200,000 spirit stones was a huge sum. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, her dark eyes reflecting a deep smile. That's true. Once Chu Feihu loses, I'm afraid he'll really die from anger. After chatting for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others once again went to the oceanic world. The final result would take some time, so they naturally couldn't stay in the house and wait for the news. The most important thing was to make the best use of their time to cultivate. In the oceanic world, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other ship was always moving in the same direction. After their experience in the desert world, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen understood that this world was not infinitely vast. If they could adapt to everything in the oceanic world, they might be able to move on to the next world. This was what they were looking forward to the most. However, with their current strength, this oceanic world could be said to be extremely dangerous. Wanting to leave the oceanic world was obviously not something that could be done in a short period of time. During the process of cultivation, Ziren and Shangguan Yingying had broken through to the 4th level of the Purple Realm one after another. They had already felt that they were not far away from breaking through, and now they had finally succeeded in breaking through. However, after the two of them broke through, everyone naturally noticed that Di Beichen's speed had slowed down a little. Hongzhuang, if Beichen's physique can't be improved, will it always suppress the increase of his cultivation? On this day, while Di Beichen was cultivating, Ziren could not help but walk to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. His elegant face was filled with indescribable concern and worry. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Ever since his cursed physique acted up, although I used the sacred frost lotus to awaken him, the effects of the cursed physique did not disappear. So during this period of time, his cultivation has been suppressed. As his cultivation becomes higher, the effects of the suppression will become more obvious. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiren's physique is... Beichun was originally the strongest in our team's strongest. This is but. Bailey Hongzhuang pursed her lips and said, Beichun's mental endurance is very strong. He has long been mentally prepared for this kind of thing. You don't have to worry. Now that we even have the amethyst dragon emperor ginseng, we are only missing the tears of cold. Hongzhuang, what do you plan to do? Xiren's expression was solemn. He did not want to see his good brother become like this. Unfortunately, with their strength, it was not easy to obtain the tears of cold. Chapter 31-34. Although this magic refining tower is located on the magic refining island and seems to have no connection with the other islands of Penglai Island, the truth is that they are inextricably linked. When Xiren's eyes flashed with a wise and far-sighted light, I have already asked Sweet Dream to pass on the news of the Penglai Island auction house to us. As long as the tears of Frostfire appear, she will definitely inform us immediately. Hearing Xiren's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes also lit up. This is undoubtedly the best. However, since someone is deliberately collecting it, the possibility of the Golden Flame auction house auctioning it is not high. No matter what, this is also an opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Right now, they could only use their own channels. They could not easily miss out on any opportunity. From this day onwards, Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiren, and Shangguan Yingying had a tacit understanding to rarely mention anything about their cultivation progress. However, Di Beichun was never a stupid person. He could clearly feel everyone's good intentions, so he also maintained the same tacit understanding. Master, if this continues, won't Di Beichun's cultivation be left far behind by you guys? The three beasties could not help but worry about Di Beichun. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two had already broken through for half a month, but Di Beichun still had not made the slightest movement. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Di Beichun's cultivation progress is indeed being suppressed. However, I believe that his cultivation will not be wasted. Once he transforms into the heavenly physique, all the accumulated benefits from the cultivation chain will definitely explode. In fact, she had only met one cursed physique cultivator in her previous life. She did not have a deep understanding of it. She only knew that the other party's cultivation progress was extremely fast after the transformation. The heavenly physique was originally an extremely powerful physique. Later on, the other party also made a name for himself in the Shengxian continent. She believed that Di Beichun was the same. Hearing this, the three beasties could not help but look at each other. The worry in their eyes did not dissipate. If Di Beichun could successfully transform into the heavenly physique, they naturally would not have to worry. However, they did not know when Di Beichun would be able to transform his physique. If he could not transform his physique in this lifetime, that would be the worst thing that could happen. We only have about a year's time. We will definitely think of a way, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a faint smile. Her pitch-black bright phoenix eyes flashed with a strong sense of determination. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were wholeheartedly cultivating in seclusion, many cultivators in the MO refining pagoda also used the Rongbu Dan, and some voices of discussion gradually came out. I heard from the cultivators who took the thawing nourishing pill that the thawing nourishing pill refined by Chu Feihu and number 18 seemed to be more effective. For real? I don't know either. However, I've already heard a few people talking about this. I don't think it's fake. As the rumors gradually spread, the majority of the cultivators in the magic refining tower felt that these cultivators were joking. It was simply impossible. However, as the number of cultivators using pills increased, the rumors became more and more widespread. Chapter 31-35. This rumor gradually spread to the ears of Chu Feihu and the others. When Chu Feihu heard the news, he immediately slammed the table angrily and roared, "What kind of joke is this? They actually said that the effect of the fusion replenishing pill refined by number 18 is better than mine? This is simply a fantasy story." He knew very well about the fusion replenishing pill he refined. He had refined it many times over the years, so it could be said that he was very familiar with it and could not find any fault with it. The alchemists in the entire demon refining tower did not dare to say that the effect of the fusion replenishing pill they refined was better than his. A mere brat who had just come to the demon refining tower dared to say that the effect was better than his? This was simply nonsense. Not only Chu Feihu, but the other alchemists and doctors also felt that it was very laughable after hearing this news. This was simply impossible. This rumor is a bit too ridiculous. As long as you use your brain to think about it, you will know that it is absolutely impossible. In my opinion, that brat is not an alchemist at all. He is just worried that he will fail, so he deliberately mystifies things. I don't know where he got some fusion replenishing pills and said that he refined them himself. Master Chu, could it be that number 18 deliberately spread this rumor because she was afraid that she would fail, so she deliberately misled the public? A group of alchemists and doctors gathered together. They did not even need to consider the authenticity of this rumor, because all of this was definitely fake. As soon as these words came out, Chu Feihu's eyes could not help but freeze. A malicious light quietly appeared. If that is the case, then this brat is really playing a good trick. Number 18 is very good at these things. Didn't we already see this half a month ago? Go and help me check if it was that brat who spread the rumor. If it is, see how I will teach him a lesson. Chu Feihu's voice was calm, but the anger in his eyes betrayed his emotions. After hearing this rumor, not only Chu Feihu and the others, but Steward Qin also felt that it was very interesting. Ever since he heard that Bailey Hongzhuang decided to compete with Chu Feihu in the effect of the fusion replenishing pill, he felt that this matter was very strange. Bailey Hongzhuang did not seem like someone who would make such an unwise move. Now that such news had spread, it was really unusual. Sweet Dream, have you noticed young Master D's movements recently? Steward Qin looked at Sweet Dream and asked. In this magic refining pagoda, the person who was most familiar with Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three was Sweet Dream. Thus, he had specially transferred Sweet Dream from the second floor to this floor. Sweet Dream shook her head and said, ever since he took out the nourishing pill half a month ago, young Master D and the others have been cultivating in seclusion in their rooms. They haven't come out for such a long time. Cultivating without leaving the house. Are you sure? Yes, young Master D and the others have always focused on cultivation. Previously, they would only come out occasionally when they were selling healing medicine. Other than that, they have always been cultivating in seclusion in the house. According to young Master D, she is only selling the healing medicine in exchange for the spirit stones she needs for her cultivation. She doesn't want to use it to make money, Sweet Dream said slowly.